Andrew, how you going?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah.
How you been? All good?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks for having me. So it's a pretty cool thing to see you doing this, because I'm a big fan of podcasts in general, So how's it been going so far?
Yeah, it's been going good. It's pretty slow at the moment.
Yeah.
I've been really busy with work.
Of course.
And band stuff and kids.
Yeah, life in general.
Life, yeah. So,
yeah.
I wanted to have more people on and had a few people I had to just turn down for a bit. And
Yeah.
and then we're going on holiday to the Philippines in 19th of November till 1st of December. So
nice.
It's not long, that's only like 11, 12 days.
You've been there before, yeah?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, only once before in, I think it was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, so, no, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah, a few times. I haven't been there in a long time, not since I was probably 16, 17 years old, because my mum's originally from the Philippines, so haven't been there in a long time. My mum keeps telling me, everyone's asking about you, and since I've had my son as well, they want to see him, and for whatever reason, I've just hadn't had the time to sort of get there.
So you have a kid, do you?
Yeah. So I got a 7-year-old. He's going to be 8 in December. So,
yeah, right.
So we've been trying to get him to go over there, and that's one of the things that I want to do with him is get him to travel as well. It's a huge thing. He's already been overseas and has been over to Sydney and Melbourne numerous times. But to go to like his home, like his ancestral place, where his mum, his grandparents are from, that's kind of what I want him to go to. So
where in the Philippines?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I have to ask my mum because she's from
this islands, hey?
Yeah, it's one of those smaller islands that have their own dialect, and they don't. It's kind of unique in that a lot of people in the Philippines don't speak or understand that dialect, but these people on the island can understand everyone else.
Yeah, right.
One of those weird things. I forget what the name of it is and all this stuff. My mum's told me numerous times, and I just don't remember.
Yeah.
But I've been there obviously when I was a kid, and it's just one of those small islands,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's heaps of awesome places to check out there.
Yeah.
But I think if you go to the main island, which is Luzon, I think the one with like Manila and that on there.
Oh yeah.
I think if you want to go to like that Boracay, have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you go. Don't quote me on it, but I think you get to catch like a propeller plane kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, the ones that I've been to, we just jump on the boats and takes us there.
I get seasick.
Yeah. Luckily, no, not the ones that I've been to in the Philippines. But funny enough, when I've gone to Rottnest, I've always been a little bit queasy.
Yeah.
The waters here are a little bit more rougher than they are in the Philippines, I think. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
If I spend time like you wean yourself onto it like the because I remember for work one time we were replacing some liners in the bottom of a ore ship in the hull and so I went on there and for the first day I was like I don't know if I can go on here because I get really seasick and they'll go you just gotta get on there and have a go. I went on there and then because the first day I was kind of filling in and I rocked up a lot lunchtime just filling in the arvo, so I was there for 3, 4, 5 hours. By the end of it, I was like, and it was a big ship, so I didn't rock too much, and it was kind of moored up to the fucking port thing there.
Yeah.
So it's up against the rubber and that, but it still moves. And by the end, I was like, I've had enough for today. And then the next day, I went on for a bit, and then we were swapping. Because there was a few of us. Then one of us would go on the ground on the port, because we were sending loads up, and then and so I was starting to get used to it. And then by the end of like the 2 weeks we were there, Then when I went up to it's got like this big arm thing that's it's got like a conveyor thing to load the ore off to offload it.
Yeah.
And I went up on that, and that's really high. And obviously, because that's the highest point of the ship, if the ship's moving a little bit down here, it's moving a lot up there. And I went up there, and I was all right with that for a bit.
Yeah.
But then, because I'm so scared of heights, I climbed the ladder and got up on there, and I couldn't get back down. I was shitting myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, how am I going to get down? And I was like neurotic, man. I couldn't fucking move. I froze up.
Yeah.
And it's fucked because it's kind of embarrassing, but I can't help it.
Oh, it is what it is, yeah.
And I was like fucking shitting myself. And I was like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to get there. So what I'd do was get on my hands and knees and crawl over to the ladder and then like lay down and like try hop on it. And it looked so high, but it wasn't that. It was pretty high, but
yeah.
not that high, and but you know when you're standing on something, you're like, fuck, I can't jump off that, and then you hop down off it, you're like, oh, it's like waist height. Yeah. But this was like that, but a lot higher than that.
It's that different perspective. It looks different from up there and from down there. You know?
And I was fucking shit myself, and then you know when you're holding onto the ladder. It's weird. I don't know if your mind plays tricks on you like it does with me, but I was like, I don't have control of my hands anymore, and I'm going to fall off the rungs, and you trick yourself, you get anxiety, and you're like, fuck, I'm going to fall.
Yeah.
And I got down finally, but it took me ages, and everyone pulled the piss out of me, and everyone was making fun of me, and I was like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things. Everyone's got one of those little quirks, I guess, that they don't know how to deal with, and it sometimes can be the most simplest things as well. Yeah. But to you, it's like the biggest thing, but everyone else is like, you know, whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's like some people grew up and were like climbing ladders when their dad was cleaning the gutters or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't really do that, so
yeah.
So I'm terrible with anything to do with heights. Even if I go up like a structure and like, you know, we go to mines and all that. If I go up on the like big towers there for where conveyors and that are, it's really high. And even then, I'm not bad because if there's handrails, I know I can hold on to something. I can't fall off. And but then if I look down, my legs go like jelly. Oh shit! And
so I'm guessing you probably don't go on to like big roller coasters and stuff like that.
No, I went on one roller coaster once at Adventure World years ago when I was probably like maybe like 18 or 19, maybe even younger, might have been 17. And yeah, it wasn't too bad. I didn't really like it because I don't know. When I go on something like that, I get really bad pain in my head. Like I went ages ago. I was going to get my pilot's license just so I could fly like a Cessna and hire it out and fly it because one of my mates does that. And I was working at Barrow Island at the time, so I was on like really good money, and I'd work away for 4 weeks and come home for a week, and I had nothing to do. Everyone else was working day jobs, so I was bored. So I was like, I'm going to just go get my pilot's license, and I went to that Murray Field. Do you know where that is?
No, I've heard of Barrow Island, but I don't know anything else beyond that.
Oh, the Murray Field. That's local. That's like a little airstrip.
Oh,
and it's like people go there and fly planes and shit.
I thought they do a lot of the testing of flights at the Jandakot one.
Oh, maybe, but yeah, this one's just local. It's not very far from here.
Wow.
And so I went there, and then the guy was really cool. We got along really well, and I did I think it was like an hour lesson, and we was flying around over Mandurah, and then he goes, "Do you want to do a somersault thing?" And I was like, "It's a fucking Cessna, man."
This is on your first flight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we just got along good, and me and him just like really hit it off, and we were just like laughing about stuff and whatever. And he's like, "Do you want to do a somersault?" And I was like, "Fucking, can you do that in this thing?" Because, you know, Cessnas are like they're slow.
Yeah.
And I was like, wouldn't it fall out of the sky? I was like, shit, it's going to stall. It's going to be like the movies. And I'm like, fucking, and do like one of them spinny dives into the ground or something. And no, but he ended up doing it. And yeah, he's like, and he goes, "I'll do it, and then you can have a go after and do it after." And so he did it, and like you dive down. I think he dives down, then pulls it up, and just the G's, even though it'd be fuck all, because you know, but it made the back of my head like felt like it was going to explode. Like must have been blood pressure or something, and it was like an instant migraine or something, and it was the worst feeling ever. And I was like, my vision went blurry, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And then after, my heart went crazy. It was going like over 200 BPM, and it wouldn't slow down. So I had to go to hospital, and they had to stop my heart and then restart it because because it was going fucking crazy, man. And I wasn't like scared. I was because this guy.
Did
I was
they say
confident.
what it exactly was?
I won't get into it, but I've got like a medical history with my heart anyway.
Oh, okay.
And so it was probably I shouldn't do shit like
Yeah,
that,
probably.
like adrenaline shit. I was even worried about first time playing on stage because I've got a history of my heart going out of control, and I've had heaps of surgeries and shit for it. And I was worried about the first time going on stage because of adrenaline. But funnily enough, I'm actually really comfortable on stage. But but something like that. I've always thought I reckon I could skydive.
Wow,
I think that, but then I think
then
when it comes to jumping out, I'd probably have a heart attack.
I mean, I don't have any health issues like that, and even I wouldn't do skydiving.
No,
just something about it is just a little unnerving. Like I'll be in a plane, have no problem flying around, and I'll be on the biggest roller coasters and all this kind of stuff. But the skydiving thing, that's a whole different thing.
Would you bungee jump?
That's another one as well that I probably wouldn't do. It just seems
like even right there, the ground's there. If that fails,
it's not even that. It's just the what if scenario.
Yeah.
Because you do hear these horror stories
Yeah.
about something happening, and then it's like, you know.
Yeah.
But then in saying that, the argument could be, well, that's the same with the plane as well, I guess. But,
Yeah.
You know.
But the thing is, you're like jumping towards the ground, and like in the skydive, like there's other people that can grab onto you with their parachute if yours fails or something. If you're bungee jumping,
there's no
like safety factor to that.
That's true. A friend of mine does a lot of this like parasailing kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And years ago he tried to get me into it, and he flies quite high up as well. And like you basically have like a bigger like a fan or a prop or whatever it is, like thing on the back, and you got like your like a skydiving, whatever you call it, the parachute and all that, and you just go around, and you got to get like not a pilot license, but you got to go through like a rigorous sort of testing and stuff like that. And he tried to get me into it, and that I almost went into because it seemed safer than skydiving and bungee jumping and that kind of stuff, but it looked really fun to do.
Yeah.
But there was so much work to actually get. Like, you actually had to get a license and everything to be able to do this.
Yeah, right.
And because you had to know where like the flight pass and things like that. It was so much. Like, I saw the paperwork for it. It was ridiculous. It was like getting a pilot license. It was insane.
You probably end up seeing people going into like air lanes or something, and there's there's a plane coming. They're like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
And that's something that I never even thought about, and that's what initially kind of turned me off. It's like, it was not just the amount of like paperwork, but it was all that risk with like other things in the air. It's like, I don't want to go, flying into the wrong sort of area,
No. Yeah, so have you seen, going back to bungee jumping, have you seen that video? Who was it that it was? Wasn't the Jackass guys? It was someone that went to like, is it Africa or one of them countries, and they build them towers out of like bamboo.
Oh, yeah. You're probably thinking of that guy, Carl Pilkington.
Oh, that's who it was. Yeah, from Idiot Abroad.
Idiot Abroad, that's it. That's right, I did see that. Yeah, we jumped off like this man-made sort of like stick.
Yeah, sort of scaffold thing, and then they jump off into the ground, though.
Yeah.
And they've got a cord on their feet. It's like, why?
But they still hit the ground, though. They didn't actually... Like,
so how do you not break your collarbone or something?
I have no idea. I mean, it's obviously the ground looks fairly soft, like it was all mud and stuff like that, but I don't know. That's a weird ritual, to be honest. I can understand why he was so hesitant to do it as well, you know. But,
it's a funny show, that, eh?
It is. I've seen all the episodes, and
The Moaning of Life, have you seen that?
No, I've seen bits of it, but I was more of a fan of The Idiot Abroad, and also the other one he did with the short actor, Life's Too Short, was it, I think?
Or... I've heard of it, but
that's funny because it's like basically Idiot Abroad, but with another guy, and to see the arguments between the two, and it's just it's hilarious.
I've always wondered how much of it's set up, though.
I don't think it is, because I've also listened to the Ricky Gervais podcast.
With Steve Merchant.
With Steve
and
Merchant.
they made a cartoon, like a Flintstones kind of...
Well, the cartoon came afterwards, but what the cartoon was basically snippets of the original podcast that they did on this radio show in England years and years ago, like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they basically just transferred that over to like cartoon format. But that's the first time you hear about Carl Pilkington.
Yeah, because isn't that how Ricky met him? He was doing his, and he was a producer or something, wasn't he?
They were working on this at this radio station, and Carl was the producer, and Ricky and Steve were hosting the show. And then they introduced Carl because they knew him in the office and stuff like that, and they had said everyone needs to know about this guy. And then that's how it all started. It is, yeah. I don't think it's an act. I think that's genuinely how he is, you know. So I think
he's a funny bloke.
He is funny, but like I think he has a very unique perspective on life in general. Sometimes he's not wrong. You know?
He says things that you would think are like controversial, but he's right.
He's right, yeah. But the thing is that it sort of goes against everything that, whether Ricky and Steve are just playing into it as a joke, but they argue with Carl. Yeah. But the thing is that Carl is right a lot of times. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I don't know how much of an idiot he really is, to be honest. So.
No, I think it's more he's just quirky.
I think so. Yeah. Just a different perspective on life, which I can appreciate that. You know. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, so we should probably start talking about
music.
So how did you explain what you do?
Man, that's an open-ended question, because when people ask me like, what is it you do? It's just like, well, what is it that I don't do is probably an easier answer.
You don't play instruments?
No, well, yeah. No, and I get that all the time as well. Like, people assume that I'm in a band, and it's like, I never had any ambition to be in a band ever my entire life. I always loved music and wanted to be involved in the music industry, but being on stage and writing music just didn't have any interest for me. So what I really liked, and I've always loved since I was a kid, was really a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. You know, backstage and production and managing and things like that. That's how it took me a long time to sort of like figure out how to make that as a career. But when I figured it out, it was like, this is so much like fun, and I would never sort of go back and, you know, be a musician or whatever. So I initially started out just in the media, doing interviews and reporting on news and stuff like that. You could say it was journalism, but it's not really journalism. I have no degree in, you know, journalism and stuff like that. But I've been doing this like somewhat in the music stuff for over 20 years. Like I started out doing like, because I have an IT background, like in computers and web design and stuff like that. And I started building websites for like this is before social media. I'm talking about a long time ago now, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. Before social media was a thing, the biggest thing online for bands was fan sites. So that's what I used to build, was like fan sites, and I'd run them and like run message boards, forums, chat rooms and stuff like that. And through that, I ended up sort of getting involved more into the media side of things, and I started getting interview opportunities. And I mean, my first interview that I ever did was in 2003 with, do you know the Some Kind of Monster documentary that Metallica did?
Yeah.
So there's two directors, producers that did that documentary, Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky. And I got to interview Bruce Sinofsky, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And he was the very first person I interviewed. Never done anything like that at all. But it came about because I used to run this, one of the fan sites I ran was a Metallica one. And it was one of the biggest ones on the internet at the time.
Yeah, right.
He even got recognition from the band themselves. We ended up talking to people that worked within the Metallica sort of circle. Including you know, just various people. Like we had, I think Lars's dad came into our chat room once, and one of the guys that did their biography, I forget his name now. It's called Injustice for All or something, I think. We interviewed him and stuff like that. So so it sort of came out of that, and then someone in the PR world for Metallica, when they were promoting the documentary, heard about it and heard it was quite large. And you know, like with anything, if there's a big audience, they'll use it to, you know, try and promote whatever it is they need to.
Yeah.
So set up an interview with Bruce Sinofsky, and we did a giveaway for the documentary stuff on the DVD and stuff. And then I flew out to Sydney and met him, and for the film premiere in Sydney at the Opera House. And it just from that point on, it became a thing. And then fan sites started dying off, because social media was becoming a thing. Like Facebook came in and Twitter came in, and so and also there was just a lot of work. Like I had a team of people working with me, running these message boards and stuff. As I said, it was one of the largest ones in the world. Like there was a few of them. This is the Metallica one I'm talking about. I did a few other ones. Like I did one for Slipknot, I did one for Pantera and stuff like that, you know. And so when that sort of died off and social media became a thing, I ended up becoming involved in a media publication called The Rock Pit. That started in 2009, and then I jumped on board in 2011. And that was essentially interviewing people and reviewing gigs and stuff like that. And from then on, it just became a thing. And then accidentally, I went more into like music management and stuff like that because the thing with working in the media is that you have all these contacts. You have managers and labels and PR people and stuff like that contacting you all the time to try and promote their releases and tours and stuff. And over time, you just develop contacts. You just have all these network of people that you know. Yeah. And then through that, it was like, I should utilize this somehow, you know? And then I remember I was buddies with actually a band that you probably are familiar with, that a couple of the guys in Infinite Exile used to be a member of. That was the first band that I managed. Oh, and, I said to him, I wasn't working with them at all. I had no thing. I was just working still in the media. And I said, I know someone at Live Nation that's looking at trying to get support slots for, you know, their tour. And it was for Soilwork. And this was like 2015, I think it was. And I said, I'll contact them and see if I can get you on the show. reached out to him and then got him on the spot. And then from then, it just like, well, maybe I should just do more of that.
Yep.
And then that was it. It just sort of like went,
yeah, right,
out from there. So
when you, how old were you when you actually started first thinking I'm going to interview people or whatever?
I don't know. When I did the fan site stuff, the interview thing.
How old were you when you were doing that?
Oh, this is late 90s, so I would have been in my early 20s, like late teens, early 20s.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
So you were just how you got into, you were kind of just mucking around online. You were like, I'm pretty good at making websites.
Yeah, to me, it was more about building websites because I just love building websites. It was just a big fun thing to, and I don't know why I never really carried that into more of a career, to be honest. But, well, at the early 2000s, the IT bubble sort of burst and...
Yeah.
I kind of moved on to different things, but I still enjoy doing it, and I do for bands all the time still. But I've also done websites for like government councils. I used to run the Royal Show website as well, things like that. So, the interview thing and all that stuff, it never even really occurred to me to like do more of it until I joined the Rock Pit, and then. It's became a thing, and I found that I really, really enjoyed it. Like having that conversation, doing things like this,
Yeah.
And the way that I approach the interviews is really just having a conversation. It's not a bullet point kind of like thing, Q&A session. It's more like, hey, how's it going? And then like, what's up? And then we sort of go into it from there, So
yeah, well, that's the thing with this podcast was a few people have gone, not really keen to do an interview. I said, it's not an interview, it's just like a chat. And they're like, what questions are you going to ask? I'm like...
There's no questions.
Yeah, I'm like... Well, because initially there was I kind of wanted to ask, like, there's certain things I want to ask, like more for musicians is, like, why did you, if they play drums, why did you pursue drums? And what was your first... experience doing that, and then what drummer made you want to drum or whatever, and then what are your top three drums? What makes them your favourite drummer?
Yeah.
And what are some things you think you can improve on in your own technique? What are you not happy with about your own technique? And because that's always interesting to learn, because I found that over time I've had heaps of hurdles with guitar playing, real bad habits, and then just talking to people, and then I would have said what I was having trouble with, and then they had a solution for it that worked. And so it's always like a cool thing to learn, Like they might go, I'm not really, I reckon I could be better at this on drums, but I just can't seem to get over that hurdle. And then you never know, someone might listen to it and message them and go, hey man, I had trouble with that, and this is how I got over it, whatever. Because that happened with me, So not through a podcast, but just talking to people.
Yeah, cool. I mean,
because I've always been open about my shortcomings. A lot of people might try to play it down with their, vulnerabilities or things. Whereas I always say things I'm shit at. Certain things that I'm shit at.
No, I mean, that's how you learn. You talk to other people who are maybe better at certain things than you are, and you try to learn from that. I mean, I do that all the time. I'm always trying to learn new things and how to improve and all that stuff. I mean, I don't think there's ever any end point to that as well. Like, I think there's always room for improvement no matter where you are on the grand scheme of things in your career,
That's right. And then because this is going off on a bit of a tangent here, but social media is really bad for it now. If you're a young kid and you're picking up guitar, just all these guys on social media playing guitar, they're putting up the best take. But if you read comments, I'm one of them people. I always read comments. If I watch a YouTube video, it's playing, and I'm scrolling down reading comments because I just get a laugh out of shit people say. I found the funniest stuff, and I'm always screenshotting it and sending it to our band chat. Like, look at this funny shit. And
let's see what comments are come out on this video.
But you see these kids on some of them, and they're like, "Oh, I'll never be that good," and it's like, man, that's probably overdubbed for one. So maybe let's hear it without the music.
Yeah.
Because then you see these guys, some of them quite smug about it. One person that I noticed is like that is that guy from Buried Alive. Have you heard of them? He's just like an online guy, just plays heaps of wacky guitar stuff. And at one point, I think there was a bit of controversy because he was putting up videos, and it's clearly to someone that's proficient on the instrument can see like he's not really playing that.
Yeah.
Like because you'd be getting tons of string noise, like you'd be doing all this crazy tapping thing and all that, and it's like it sounds so clean. It's like there's no way you're playing that clean.
Yeah.
No fucking way, man. And then it's all samples, and there's heaps of like tremolo effect of it cutting in and out, and he's got a kill switch, but it's like,
Yeah.
no, man. And then people started going on there. You see all these kids getting depressed about it. They're like, oh, fucking, he's so amazing. You know? And then you'd see other comments going, don't beat yourself up over it. Like, that's probably his 500th take. And plus it's overdubbed with a studio edit, so he's edited the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
And then he's playing to it, which is fine, but don't pretend that you're playing that live like that.
Yeah.
Where he's kind of claiming that. And then it come out, and then people were asking him to put up live of it like unplugged almost.
Yeah, just sort of like the...
And you can tell straight away it's not sloppy. Like he's a good musician, but you can tell it's like, so you're being deceptive.
Yeah. But I mean, that's essentially what any sort of music art form is. Like the end product, people don't realize that there's so much that comes into that the end product that they just don't see.
Yeah.
And you can be obviously quite open about it and sort of show you what, you know, the sort of the journey that get you to that point. But the whole idea to do all those little tricks is to kind of have this really nice polished, you know, and it comes with anything, not just with music, but in TV shows, movies, or whatever it is, you know, there's that end product that no one else sees how it came to be.
Yeah.
But the whole point is, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot of tricks to it, but you know, no one needs to know everything about how I got there. You know, it's interesting for some people, but like, I think people need to realize that there's a lot of work that gets involved in that kind of, you know, before you see the final product.
Of course,
you know, so
well, even up until not long ago, like a couple of years ago, I didn't even know that in the studio, say for guitar leads, you know, some of your most favourite bands, they would they're like dropping in on certain bits and doing it in parts. I always thought solos that they were just doing it in one take.
Yeah, no. I mean, there probably are some cases, rare cases that has happened, you know. But I don't know. I think every band has their own technique. On some people would just like, I know Meshuggah did it on their last album. I'm sure it was like sort of taken in bits and pieces, but they essentially just recorded everything off the floor, which is
crazy.
Which you listen to that nature of what their music is. That's crazy to think that they recorded that off the floor.
Yeah,
like it's nuts. And granted, they probably just took the best parts, but still.
Yeah, but still, yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, because a lot of people now you'll record part of the riff and jump in if there's a bit that you keep fumbling.
Yeah.
Like, you can play it live on stage, but it's not studio quality.
No.
And so, because everything's under a microscope in the studio.
Exactly, yeah.
And so
you hear every little mistake and, you know. So.
Yeah, when I'm recording here, I always get paranoid. I'm like, am I cheating too much? Because I'll record parts of riffs and then pick the best bits and put them in. And I'm like, well, with the end products, the song, I want it to sound really good.
Yeah.
Live, obviously, I have to play that properly. But I'm always like, I always get... Am I cheating?
Well, I think, and this is probably a question that you could definitely answer as well, because it seems like there could be some debate on it, but obviously when you create a song, music, riffs, whatever it is, I guess I assume to you it's important that you have to be able to play it.
Yeah.
Like, especially in an entire song. If there's bits and pieces in the song that you cannot play, but you've somehow created it through whatever digital sort of thing that you were using to make it really fancy and stuff. But if you cannot replicate that live, like, what is the point? You know what I mean? Do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Unless it's something that's really weird, you want in the song something really bizarre sounding, but then you'd put that on a backing track.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, as far as like, because I'll often write stuff that I can't really play. Like, I'll kind of play a bit of a riff and then I'm like, that's awesome. And then I'll play the next bit and I'm like, I really like the way them two go. And I'll struggle to get them both together cleanly. But then later on, it makes me better because I have to be able to play that live.
Yeah.
And so I do that all the time, especially with guitar solos. I always like putting bits in here and there, and then I make it, and then I'm like, and then I'll get to learn it essentially, and then let's just see what way I work. I just find that I come up with cool stuff that way.
That's a cool thing that you do then, to come up with something that seems impossible to play, and then you go, well, now I've got to try and actually learn how to play it, because obviously it makes you improve as a guitar player as well.
Definitely. So then I've got to slow it right down and try like learn it.
I mean, that's great, because obviously some people will be like, it's too hard and I'm not going to play it, and just I'll write something that's easier that I can play, you know.
Well, because the other alternative is that if you're just going to try to do it all in one hit, is I'm not very good at improv, like improvising. I've never been good at it. So if you know, because there's one thing when you go over to someone's house and they know you play an instrument, you know, when they've had a few beers and they're like, "Oh, he plays guitar. Man, get on the guitar, show us something." And I'm like, "No," I'm like, "It's not on the spot." Nah. And then, or you'll go to people's house and they'll be jamming and they're like, "Man, grab a guitar, just improvise." I can't. And even in our old band, Human Effigy, the other guitarist Nathan, he was awesome at just coming up with shit on the fly. Because he was always playing other band stuff at home. He was always playing like Black Dahlia Murder or Monomath or Machine Head or whatever. So he was kind of had a bit of a repertoire of riffs, and he just mash them all together and make shit. And he was just rocking out, having beers and rocking out. And he could just him and our drummer in that band, Lindsay, they'd just hit it off and just be smashing out. You know, all sorts of songs, and I'd just kind of be awkwardly standing there like trying to think of something. I just can't because I've never really played other bands' songs much. I learn like half a song. I'm like, I'll be listening to a song in the car and I'll be like, oh, I can't wait to get home. I'm going to learn that. Yeah. I'll learn like the first riff and then like, I'm bored. I want to write something myself.
So when you first got into guitar playing then, like you weren't playing like other band stuff then?
I was, but I've never really learnt full songs. Probably the only full song I ever learnt was Sanitarium by Metallica.
Okay.
I think I learnt Master of Puppets, but not down-picked.
Yeah, you have to... I've heard so many versions, like cover versions of that song from like really high, like Dream Theater and stuff like that. And the thing is they don't downpick it and it doesn't sound right.
No, you have to have that attack.
But not everyone can downpick it though. That's the thing.
No.
It's a hard song to play.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard. And that's how I started out. Was one of my brothers. He bought a guitar because he was a shearer, so he would go away and on the shearing season and go shearing sheep on farms, and then to pass the time he bought a guitar that he could just play, sit in his room on the farms and play guitar in his
like an acoustic or something? Or?
No, he bought a Flying V.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think he bought it secondhand from Cash Converters or something like that. And then he bought, I think, I've got a really bad memory, but I think he bought like a really shitty, cheap kind of amp. And, you know, one of them Zoom effects pedals?
Yeah.
You know, the Zoom ones that had heaps of effects on them. He had that. And then, and we used to, when he'd come back to our house, Mum's house, he would, get me to jump on the computer and print up tabs. And we grew up listening to like Megadeth and Pantera and Metallica, stuff like that. So, and Guns N' Roses. So we'd print out like Sweet Child of Mine or something, print the tabs out for that, and then some Metallica stuff and all that. And then he was playing. Then he'd give me a go at the guitar, and I sucked ass at it. But I just wanted, because he was my brother, and me and him were always a bit rivalry, you know what I mean? So then I wanted to play guitar because he was playing it. And then,
right, yeah.
But then he went away and all that, and then he was working away for ages doing stuff. So then I ended up eventually, probably when I was 16 or 17, bought my own guitar from Cash Converters and a little Ashton amp. And then I was just trying to learn Pantera and Machine Head and stuff. And then, but I was always just trying to write my own shit. I don't know why, I just get bored playing other band stuff.
Yeah, because it's probably not, because it's not yours. You know, you want something that's a bit more, original.
Yeah, so every time people were like, "Oh, play something," I'm like, "You won't know anything because I'm going to play my stuff, and you're not going to know it, and it's going to bore the fuck out of you." So I'll just sit this one out, you know.
Yeah, it's weird because like a lot of people that I've interviewed, like, because I'm fascinated by the journey of everyone, like when they get into music, especially heavy music, because everyone's journey is different. I'm just fascinated by everyone's story. And it's quite common for a lot of musicians to initially start out playing covers and stuff like that. And that's like the most common thing that I've seen. So it's interesting that to hear you say that you didn't do that, because it's a rare story to hear. To be honest.
I know. It is. And sometimes I get stuck in a rut because I don't have anything to draw from. Like, it's good to play other band stuff because you get inspiration.
Yeah.
So what I find is when I listen to stuff on Spotify, I'll write in my phone in the notes like a band song. If I just hear a cool riff on there, then I'll look up how it's played, and then I'll go, oh yeah, that's cool. That's a cool idea. I might try maybe jack an idea from that. You know, not rip that off, but just get some inspiration from that. And heaps of my inspiration is definitely from Machine Head and Pantera. Like, so much inspiration from that. And that probably definitely does come out when you listen to it, I guess, especially Machine Head more so than Pantera, because. Yeah, I was just for years, was just such a massive fan of theirs.
Yeah, Dimebag, like especially like just the amount of like riffs and cool ideas that he had. Like he was, it's one thing that he had like the chops to play guitar. He was a great guitar player, but he had really interesting and unique ideas that he would add into the songs.
Yeah, it's his technique.
Yeah,
yeah. That's the thing. Like you were saying, say with Master of Puppets. Well, the thing with Pantera is every time you hear a cover, it's never as good. It's never. And because it was his way he picked in his vibrato, and he had a real sleazy way of playing. Like everything was like that bluesy, sleazy.
Well, the thing is that everyone sees Dimebag as the ultimate metal guitar player, but the thing is that his roots were in hard rock. I mean, Van Halen and Kiss and stuff like that. I mean, but people don't understand. This is something that I've definitely sort of gotten from all these interviews that I've done, is that a lot of these musicians that we're big fans of, that we grew up listening to, they didn't start out as metal fans because they were sort of in the beginning of all that stuff. Yeah. So their roots were all in like blues, classic rock, that hard rock kind of stuff. And then that just became like heavier and heavier as the years went on, you know? Yeah.
Well, that's like even, Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
I remember I had one of their DVDs. I bought like a deluxe edition of one of their albums, and it came with a DVD, and I had some behind-the-scenes stuff. And I think he was playing... Don't quote me on it, but I think he was playing an acoustic. It was either him or Jack O'Brien, or Pat O'Brien. Is it Pat? Or
Pat O'Brien.
Who's Jack? Was the other guy?
Jack.
He was a bald fella, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't remember all the names of Cannibal Corpse, to be honest.
I've always liked them, but I've never hugely followed them. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it was Alex Webster, and he was playing like bluesy stuff. He said he loves like jazz and blues or something, which would make sense when you see him play the bass. He's so proficient at it, and amazing at it. And I remember because I was young, I was like, what the fuck? Metal guys play other shit.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Like, you have to understand, like, there was no metal stuff when they were growing up as a kid. Like, all the bands that have come out in the last 20 to 30 years, like, that's the beginning.
That's right. It's hard to think that too. Hey,
like when the real heavy stuff started to come into play in the early 80s when Slayer and Metallica came out, that was it. Like there was nothing heavy before that. It was like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple.
That's
you know
right.
What I mean?
Yeah, and then you hear when you say people reminisce, like when say Fear Factory came out and he was doing the kicks in time with the guitar. Yeah. People were losing their minds.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. And I just became an instant fan because it was just different. And that early 90s period when all these bands like Pantera, Machine Head, Fear Factory, Biohazard, all the Roadrunner bands essentially. Yeah. I mean, that was the second wave of like the metal, the heavy stuff, you know? Like there was obviously the classics like Metallica and all that, but then that period in the early 90s, like that's, and it spawned so many bands since then. Also, obviously, the deathcore and metalcore scene came out of that in the next generation, the next 10 years after that, you know? So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from now, like who's influencing who and where it's going to be going, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, even in the 90s, just for me, I think that was such a creative period for metal because if you listen to the 80s, there was the main bands, you know, like Megadeth, Slayer,
Big Four,
Metallica, Anthrax or whatever, and they had similarities, but they were all obviously very different. But all the other bands around them were kind of doing the same thing,
100%,
but not as good in some instances. Whereas in the 90s, it was really eclectic. There was so many different things. Like Fear Factory was wildly different to Pantera, similar in ways with the intensity and the heaviness and all that, but wildly different. And then you had like Machine Head and Sepultura, completely different to each other, and then you had like say Morbid Angel and stuff like that as well. There's just so many different.
I think it's because music just became
like branched out.
Yeah, it became more varied because there was more. Like you have to like the late 70s, early 90s, early 80s. Like that was all there was. Like that sort of metal that was going on at the time. That's all there was.
Yeah,
and so they were just playing off of each other because there was no one else to kind of go, how do we make this heavier? But I don't know where to get the inspiration from. And then by the time the 90s came around, it's like they had all these stuff from the 80s because it was like thrash and death metal and stuff like that. So they had much more to draw from apart from just the classic rock and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And then as time went on in the 90s, like you could hear I guess the more hip hop influences with new metal and stuff like that. So there was not just metal stuff, but there was other genres of music sort of influencing it as well.
Yeah, you're definitely right. That's why I think for me, 90s is the best era for it.
Yeah, it's so weird though, because now the 90s has become the 70s as far as like that's the classic rock era now. You know,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's making us feel old, I know, but but that's what it is. It's like the 90s is like has become the 70s essentially. Yeah,
it has. But now I live under a bit of a rock musically. Like I don't listen to many bands outside of the bands I like. I'm not really ever checking out new bands very often. I'm just one of them people that go in my comfort zone, you know?
Yeah.
But in saying that, because when I do venture out of it, I'm never really blown away by much. And just now it seems like metal's, to me, but I'm sure there's people that could educate me on it, but it feels like it's stagnated a bit, like it's kind of, you know what I mean?
I totally get what you mean. I feel the same way.
It's not exciting at the moment, the metal genre. Maybe there's people doing exciting shit, but I'm not hearing it. And maybe that's because I live under a rock.
Well, I've been privy to all the new music that comes out, like both in the underground and in the mainstream. And I'm seeing what's blowing up and what's big. And I get it. It's different. But a lot of it doesn't seem to be derived from just metal. There seems to be what has happened. I remember having this conversation with Dave Davidson from Revocation.
Yeah.
Fantastic guitar player. He's like this guy that just has been classically in jazz trained kind of stuff. And we talked about like the nature of the music that's happening now, and you take that band for example, Revocation. That's a hybrid band because you can't pigeonhole that band into one particular thing. And what I came from that conversation was that that seems to be happening to a lot of bands. It's like they've all become hybrid bands because they're not influenced by just the one sort of source like it was back in the 90s or whatever. It's like they're listening to like electronic music and new metal and hip hop and all this kind of stuff along with like the metal, and then they kind of just put it into a mixing pot, and sort of what comes out is not the traditional metal that we know of.
No.
And that's probably why we're not being blown away. But in saying that, younger kids are being blown away by these bands.
Yeah, that's right.
So whether that's just an age thing,
that's right. Because maybe the guys that loved bands in the 70s and 80s, maybe when the 90s bands came out, they go, I'm not excited about this.
Very true, yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
May just be that thing. But even with my band, same thing. We've talked about this before. You know, when I've said to you, what fucking genre are you, man?
Yeah.
And I don't know, when people ask me, what kind of metal? I'm like, I don't know, man.
It's getting harder and harder,
It's got groove. That's the only tangible thing to it, because there's tremolo riffs, there's a lot of death metal kind of stuff, a little bit. And then there's some metalcore stuff. Then there's tons of groove stuff, and then some thrash. And at the same time, I'm always concerned that is it to our detriment? Like, is it too varied that people aren't going to go, man, what the fuck's this band doing? I don't know, are they fucking groove or are they thrash? What the fuck are they doing?
Well, the problem is that people are just too quick to try and find a label, and it's like, but that shouldn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, do you like the music? Yeah. Then what difference does it make what it's called? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the easy go-to that a lot of PR people label bands these days is just metalcore. I just go metalcore. Then I listen to it and I go, this is not metalcore.
It's really broad terms, isn't it?
It is real. It reminds me of like, because music comes in a lot of phases, and like what considered was like new metal, for example. By the time the early 2000s came around, that genre was so saturated that every band started to sound the same, and metalcore went through the same thing. Deathcore,
absolutely.
They went through the same thing. But it got to a point where like a band would just be heavy, and then it would just be lumped into that kind of thing. There are so many, like Seven Dust, for example. I never considered them to be really new metal, but they were lumped into that whole thing. You know what I mean? Because they were just around at that same time.
They're a strange one, though. I wouldn't really know what genre to call. If someone wanted to pigeonhole them, I'd be like, I don't really know.
Heavy rock to me. It sounds more rock. Like Drowning Pool is like a little metal, but it's like it sounds more like rock at the end of the day. You know? So.
Almost like Seven Dust. You listen to, because I was listening to some the other day because I hadn't heard them for years, and then I saw something with that, you know, Lejeune or whatever. Witherspoon. Something came up on Instagram, and I was like, oh, that guy. Fuck, I remember him. He's from Seven Dust, because I hadn't listened to him for 15 years probably, and then I just jumped on Spotify and YouTube and just looked up a couple of video clips, and because I always like that Morgan Rose's drumming because he's so animated when he drums. And just belts the fuck out of it.
I caught a drumstick from him once at a show.
Did you?
Yeah,
Awesome
I think it was the last time they were here, and he threw it out in the crowd and was like, caught it. I was like,
yeah. Killer drummer though, eh?
Yeah, he's a great drummer. I've interviewed him and both him and With the Spoon as well.
Yeah,
just the nicest guys in the world.
They're
so grateful for what they're doing as a career, you know, and it's nice to hear that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was listening there. They were almost doing metalcore kind of riffs.
A little bit, yeah.
The open,
yeah.
You know, almost breakdown riffs that weren't breakdowns though.
And that's probably where the new metal thing sort of like came into play. Like maybe that's why they were labelled that. But,
yeah.
Because new metal and metalcore, there's a bit of a bridge between the two, you know.
Yeah,
Metalcore sort of came out of the new metal kind of, you know, thing. And
yeah, the metalcore kind of dropped the rap thing though, didn't it? Then they went more to just for the clean vocals and the heavy, like clean choruses and heavy verses.
Yeah, and there were so many bands that got lumped. Like Killswitch Engage kind of started the whole thing.
They're the first band. If I when I've thought, what band started metalcore? It's always, for me, it was Killswitch. Yeah, definitely them.
Yeah,
for sure. But because what bands? Because they were pretty big, but then what bands were coming after them though?
Well, during that time, it was what they called
Remains were coming out.
They were part of also the new wave of American metal. So when bands like Lamb of God and Trivium and Devil Drive and all that kind of come out, they were not metalcore, but they were around at the same time.
Yeah.
And so that's what made the difference between those bands and all the metalcore bands that came out. And some of them kind of like like Lamb of God was sometimes labelled a metalcore, but I'd never heard them as a metalcore band, to be honest.
No, they were really hugely Pantera influenced.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Fucking
but
hell, man.
more so now than the early. The early stuff's really almost like a Meshuggah Genty kind of stuff, like very like the start and stop kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But their later stuff is way more Pantera-ish than anything else.
Even that there's that Laid to Rest song.
Yeah,
that was super Pantera style riff on that.
That's
and then
true. Yeah,
the song that I always like, man, that's so Pantera influenced, is the one where they're at rock up to someone's house in a bus and they're partying. Is that
that's Redneck. Yeah.
That's 100% like. I'm like that's one of like that's like some B-side riffs that the Pantera never used or something.
Yeah, you can see the influence of like. I assume Mark Morton, because Mark Morton, he's got that blues swagger in his style, and that's sort of like what Dimebag had as well.
Yeah, exactly right. You
can always tell when Mark is the one that wrote a lot of the stuff in Lamb of God as well.
He's got that.
Yeah, you can just tell. But he's got that different sort of style altogether. He's more the metalcore guy if he was gonna label anyone a metalcore guy.
Yeah, definitely. So. Yeah. When you're going back to Devil Driver, I never got into them because I remember, that Des Fafara was from Cold Chamber, and I never got into Cold Chamber. I heard that one song, Loco, and I just, to be honest, I found it I couldn't get into it.
Again, they were another band that was in that new metal sort of movement, you know, and that. For to be honest, the new metal movement to me reminded me too much of the glam rock scene, the glam metal scene, because it was just every band was just doing that sort of thing. It was the trendy thing to do, you know. Yeah,
well, I never listened to it because I heard that Loco song and I was like, that ain't for me. And I remember I was on the Machine Head message board when I was a young teenager all the time. I lived on that thing, and everyone used to pull the piss out of Cold Chamber on there. and then that Des started Devil Driver. I don't know the history of it, but I know that then he became that band, and so I never listened to him because I thought, it's probably another Cold Chamber thing.
All the same as well, yeah. And then I saw them live. They were opening for Fear Factory, and I thought, this is Dez's new band. I was like, whatever, you know. And I checked them out, and I was like, holy shit. This is not Cold Chamber.
Nah, it's fucking amazing.
It is.
I only heard my first Devil Driver song the other day. I've probably heard them before, but never knew it was them. Probably heard it in someone's car or something.
Yeah.
But it was my first time dedicated some time to checking them out. Yeah. And because I was hanging out with that Neil Timon from Carnifex, who used to be in Devil Driver. And
oh, really? Was he?
Yeah. He was a guitarist for them for a few years there. And I was and because when I was talking to him, he used to play guitar for American Idol winner. That's how he kind of started getting big, I think. I'm going to talk to him about it sometime. Because I was saying to him, I'd love to know the history behind how you got from playing from a pop singer, touring, to then playing in like these extreme metal bands.
Yeah.
I just think that's a weird contrast, but it's interesting, you know.
Yeah.
But then in saying that, then you listen to say Mark Tremonti. You know, if you listen to Creed and then listen to his band Tremonti or Alter Bridge.
Alter Bridge, yeah.
It's like, that's the Creed guy. Even though I was into him when he was playing Creed, I just liked his guitar playing. Always loved it. I didn't like the vocals. And so I've always known he was an amazing guitarist. But every time I'd tell people, oh, you got to check out Alter Bridge, and they're like, oh, isn't that the guy from Creed? Or it's all the guys from Creed, just different singer.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people are like, no, and they won't check him out. I'm like, man, you're doing yourself the biggest disservice. Why didn't you like Creed? The vocals were shit. Well, it's different vocalists now.
Yeah.
And
I can understand not getting into Alter Bridge because that's kind of like melodic rock.
Yeah,
and they have some
fucking
heavy
riffs
stuff.
though, man.
Yeah, they're great riffs.
And the guitar solos.
But his solo stuff is really where he gets into the heavier stuff.
Yeah, but I like his vocals, but I would love to hear his solo stuff with a different vocalist because I love the riffs and that, and I always thought if there was a bit more of a heavier vocalist, it would be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Even though I do love his vocals, but Alter Bridge, they got some real heavy shit too.
They do, yeah.
And even Miles, some of his guitar solos are fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, but he's really more of a vocal. Like he's a great singer.
Yeah.
And he does some great stuff with like Slash as well in the other band. But Alter Bridge is one of those ones where they've got heavy moments. Like they're almost like a heavy rock band, you know?
Yeah,
in some respect.
yeah, definitely. They're but it's funny because people just won't listen to them because they didn't like Creed. And it's like they're really fucking good though.
There's a reason why Alter Bridge exists and Creed exists. They're just two different bands, you know?
Yeah, but it's funny because every time you hear a chorus on a Alter Bridge song, that Tremonti is virtuosic in his chorus writing. You can straight away tell it's a chorus he wrote because it's got that Creed DNA of them. He does the same kind of chords and they're cool. It's cool. He's just got that style about him.
Yeah,
and he influenced me heaps too because I remember I bought his. I don't know if you heard of that company Fret 12.
No,
they just partnered with heaps of musicians and did some like DVDs. It's called the music and the story or something like that, and what they'll do is they'll just talk about how they got into music, pretty much like we're doing on the podcast.
Yep.
And they'd just be talking to the camera, and then they'd say how they got into playing guitar or whatever their instrument was, and then it'd come with some lessons and tab book on how to do some of their solos, and then it came with heaps of his practice routines and how he practices, and it was just so thorough. And I got that in my early 20s, and I was just practicing that flat out. And so that's a lot of his styles. Probably I've incorporated a lot of that into my playing. Not that you could probably tell, but it's definitely there. He's such an underrated guitarist. Even though everyone knows he's awesome, he's still not as widely known as he should be.
Yeah, I mean, I remember interviewing him once, and I had no idea of because he's a metalhead, like he's a full blown metalhead,
like into speed metal.
But I had no idea because I was interviewing for his solo album, but I knew him from Alter Bridge, and I kind of knew him from Creed, but I kind of knew him more for Alter Bridge because I was more of a fan of Alter Bridge. Yeah, and when I heard his solo stuff, and I went, "Holy crap!" So when I asked him like, "What's his musical ballad? How did you get into music?" Like he'd tell me like he was into like Metallica and Slayer, and all that. I was like, the Creed guy is into that. And I was like, wow, I had no idea, you know? So,
it's strange, eh? Yeah. The people's influences, and then they're writing this cock rock stuff. Yeah,
I mean, it's just a different path that he went into, but I mean, you can I'm not saying he did it for money, but you can see why people will do things like that because they probably generate more money than say like some local metal band, you know what I mean? So you can...
Yeah, I see what you mean. Even, Daughtry.
Yeah, I've heard of them, yeah.
He's even got some songs that are borderline metal. Like there's one that's really heavy rock. Awesome song. It's called Renegade or something. Love that song. And I don't dig most of his stuff. I think he's a good singer. He's definitely talented. But I was surprised when I heard that. I was like, fucking, this is Daughtry. What the fuck? That's pretty fucking heavy, man.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to check out bands and you'll just be like if you don't like it, you don't like it. But sometimes you'll be really like, I love being surprised when I hear an album that I have no idea what it's about. Yeah. And then I'm like, wow, this is actually really good.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's just,
definitely.
People need to be a bit more open. It's just so hard now. Like people need to be a bit more open to music, but it just seems like it's hard because there's so much of it. And
there is. That's I reckon Spotify's good, and it's equally as bad as it is good.
Yeah.
And because you're just bombarded with too much stuff, and I find that I can never. It's like Netflix. I'll scroll through Spotify, and I'm like, I don't know what to listen to, and then I end up just not listening to anything. You know, when sometimes you get on Netflix and you scroll through it with the missus, you're like, what should we watch? And
it's like so much to pick on. I have no idea.
Well, me and Sam were talking about this yesterday. I went to that Drasco's Chicken. Have you been there?
No.
And they do like really hot burgers, chicken burgers, and they got there's like a scale of like 5 heats, and then there's like a secret hot that's not on the thing, and they ask you if you want to try that. And Sam got a piece, and I just had like a little bit, and I started getting really lightheaded, and my eyes were watering, and my lips were like red, and I was like, man, we're going to this gig, and I'm gonna have like these looks like I'm wearing lipstick. I was like so embarrassed. I was like, fuck. So, and man, that was fucking intense, man. The heat, it was so uncomfortable, but. Anyway, what I was getting at was that their menu has like 2 things on it. It's just got like you want a chicken burger or you want chicken waffles.
Yeah.
Or you can just get just fried bits of chicken. And then you then there's sides for fries. So there's like just a handful of items on there. And I was saying to Sam, man, I love it when it's like this because you go to restaurants and some of them have got like 50 fucking things. You know, like Hans cafes like that?
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I don't know what... I just can't decide on anything, man. And you know, and then you order something and you're like, oh, fuck, I should order this. Oh, fuck, I should order that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you got like 5 choices, it's like, it's almost made the choice for you.
Yeah.
And then that's where Spotify, there's just too much. Whereas I just miss when, I don't know what you used to do, but when I was growing up listening to music, I used to go to 78 Records and that in Perth.
Yeah,
and what was the other place in Perth everyone used to go to?
There's Data Records, which is still there, 78 Records, and then there was this great place just near the Horseshoe Bridge, which is sadly not there anymore. I think it was just called like the CD Library or the CD Club or something.
Yeah.
And I used to just pick up so much bootleg stuff there because they specialise in that. I pick up so much like B-sides and singles and stuff like that. And when they did the whole renovation with the whole Horseshoe Bridge and all that, the shop never reopened again, sadly enough. But then general stores like CD places were just closing down anyway, I guess.
That's right. They got their days numbered, I guess, in a way. But but I used to go there, and then I'd go to like say Sanity or whatever locally, and or I'd do a day trip to Perth just with mates, and then I would just spend like $100, buy a few CDs, and I would just because. This is like early 2000s. So, yeah, there was the internet, but it wasn't like now.
No.
So to find CDs or cool bands, I would just look at whatever band looked like had a cool CD cover. And I bought like Cradle of Filth stuff, even though I never really was into them because the set cover looked cool. And then I look on the back and the song names, like, that sounds so fucking sick.
Yeah.
And then, and I bought heaps and discovered heaps of bands like that. Just by purely just picking up the CD and I liked the artwork and liked the song names or the name of the album was like super badass. I'm like, that's gonna be heavy as fuck. And then I'd put it in my car and it was like you had to listen to it from start to finish because I just spent fucking $20 on this. I have to listen to this now.
Yeah, exactly.
And whereas Spotify, if you might listen to the first song of someone's album and you're like, it's not for me.
And you just
whereas if that CD's in your car, you kind of have to listen to it. You don't have a choice unless you're going to take it out, but you paid money for it and you're going to give it a go. It's
the devaluing of the music that's really kind of ruined. I mean, it's great in one way to discover.
That's what I'm saying. It's good. It's equally as bad as it is good, I think. Yeah.
It is what it is, but I mean, to try and I don't know where regular people discover new music because I'm just in that position where I literally get it sent to me.
Yeah, okay.
And I just, it's a matter of just weeding them through and seeing what's, and so I do listen to a lot of new music and obviously I have to listen to a lot of garbage, but then every once in a while there's this gem that comes through and I'm like, man, more people need to know about this band, Yeah. But I don't know where everyone else, like, people say they find it on YouTube. Some people go through the related searches on Spotify. I mean,
and there's the Spotify radio thing. Like I checked out, Daybreak. You know that band?
Yeah.
Well, I recently just checked them out, and I had it on in my car, and I'd put on their latest single, Fracture, sick song, and then that finished, and then that's the only song on there. So then Spotify just played something else, and I was like, what the fuck's this? And it was another band that I thought was really cool, called Grey Out or something like that. And so I discovered that, but then I looked them up on Instagram and I couldn't find them, so I forgot about them after that.
And that's the other thing as well. You sometimes will discover a new band, like it, and then you will forget about them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Whereas because there's nothing physical. Whereas if you got a CD there, when you're going through your pack of CDs, you're like, oh, fuck, I haven't listened to that for ages. I forgot about them.
Yeah.
You know, whereas Spotify, you're not going to see that.
You just don't remember them.
There's just an ocean of and that's the thing when you're in a band is like, man, how do we get people to listen to us? Because there's just so much fucking music. How do we get people to notice us? And
well, sadly, it's not about the music anymore. That's what it is. Like, to get people's attention, you need to do all these other things.
Yeah.
And then the music just sort of it's just so stupid, but it's become secondary. Like, people's attention spans are so short that they need things to get them to it. And then you show them the music. And it's like, I mean, I guess marketing's always worked that way, you know, to like advertising and stuff like that. But I don't know. It should really be about the music. Yeah. You know, like if you like it or you don't like it, you know, it's just...
Well, that's like I was talking to just on Messenger the other day, Sean from RFMD, that band Reformed.
Yeah.
And we were just having a chat on Messenger and was talking about music and he had a good point. He said something like that in his opinion, music's become like not 80 or 90% online imagery, like your image online, and like 10% playing gigs, because it's more important now to look cool like on Instagram and shit than playing gigs. Because I've found, well, for us anyway, I don't know if it's bigger bands, different story, because that's their living, you know, they're making income.
Oh, they're also established. Like a lot of the bigger bands, legacy, they've got an established market already, and so they're just playing the game now. Really, that's all they're doing.
Yeah, so whereas now, like say, when we play gigs, not often do I see new people come that have come just to see us. So because I don't know if less people are going and checking out gigs, I don't know, or maybe not many people like our music.
There's a lot of factors. There's just because you're also competing with like the home comforts of like Netflix and stuff like that. So there's less incentive for people to go out these days.
That's right.
And so a lot of times it's just your mates coming to the shows and then their mates and all that stuff. But then there's also a factor of the environment that you live in, like a place like Perth, very, very hard market to crack. There's very, very, very few bands, especially metal bands, who are successful straight out of the thing in Perth. Yeah. They've got to go elsewhere and then come back and bring that success to Perth, you know. I mean, have a look at all the biggest bands in Perth, like metal, like Make Them Suffer, Voyage and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they got their success outside of Perth, you know, and then brought back it. And then everyone saw that success and went, oh, these guys are something to pay attention to. Now we've got to go see them.
Yeah, it's almost like they need other state to verify them.
It's not a criticism, but that's the Perth mentality. It's always been like that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're okay, but I wonder what Victoria thinks of them.
Well, I think Australia as a nation has that a little bit with like the UK and the US. We kind of like see what they're doing and go, whoa, that band's doing well, we need to check them out. Yeah. And then Perth's just that secondary one. It's like the rest of the country. We just, you know what I mean? Like it sort of just trickles down from other places, and we're the last one getting the crumbs, and it's just... It's just because of the geographic nature of where we are. We're so isolated from the rest of the world. We kind of just rely on other people to kind of give us what is, you know, something to check out, you know.
There's so many awesome bands here, though. Like,
it is. We have one of the best music scenes in the world, 100%.
Like that Paradise and Exile, I saw them last night, and fucking man, the drummer was fucking amazing drummer. Like, fuck, he was so good. But they just sounded sick, man. And then Daybreak, they were fucking awesome. And I was saying to Sam, because Sam knows about him, because he's a bit younger than me. He's in his mid to late 20s, and so he knows about them because they're younger guys. I think they're probably around his age. So he was listening to them years ago, and I was like, man, I've never even like heard of them before. I only just stumbled upon them on Instagram a little while ago, and I said, fucking. And then they supported like Fit for an Autopsy recently, which is a pretty big deal. And I'm like, fuck, I've never. How the fuck are these bands getting these supports? I've never heard of them. And then he's like, man, they were big a few years ago. Then they kind of went dormant. And I was like, I've never heard of them. Yeah. And then I was like, I didn't know if they'd be good or not. I checked them out. I'm like, fuck, they're awesome. Man. They're fucking awesome. And then Paradise and Exile, awesome band as well. And no one probably really knows about these bands, but they're fucking wicked.
Well,
man.
the thing is that those bands are also in a different scene, because I think you're more involved in the sort of the heavy music scene, especially in Perth. There's like two sides to it. There's like the sort of the hardcore and deathcore sort of and more sort of like post-hardcore kind of stuff, I guess, which is really big at the moment. And then there's like the metal scene that everyone kind of knows. Yeah. But though they don't mix, like you won't see those bands mixing together very often, you know. So
definitely.
That's why if you're not involved in either scene, you probably will not hear about these. Like there's bands like in the metal scene in general that the other scene wouldn't have ever heard of.
Yeah.
The exact same thing that you just said about those bands that you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a whole crowd that's never even heard of the bands that we know of. Do you know what I mean?
That's right, yeah.
So it's just and I don't know whether that's everywhere in Australia or if it's just a Perth thing. I don't know. But it definitely seems like there's a dividing line unintentionally as well. I'm not saying that they hate each other. I'm just saying that there's just clearly two different sort of scenes happening.
Yeah, definitely. There's like this invisible line there. Yeah, that's like because I think I was speaking to you before. I was like, how do we play with these other bands? And like, it's like I don't know anyone that knows them either.
Yeah,
it's like they're from another state or something.
I mean, I think the only way to do it is to just be. I mean, you want to be part of the scene. You've got to be part of the scene.
Yeah,
you've got to go to the gigs and hang out with them and chat with them and stuff like that. And if you don't do that, then no one will know like who you are.
No, exactly. And that's like because I thought fuck, it'd be awesome to play a gig with Daybreak sometime because they're fucking awesome and just a couple other local bands like it'd be good to get on a gig with Sedative as well. They're a good bunch of guys and all that, but they're in this other
they're in this other thing
and I know some of them guys. I've chatted to them, so you know I'm sure sometime we'll tee it up. But it's like it would be rare for us to be paired with them on a bill unless one of us kind of forces it to happen in a way.
Well, you know how it all works. It's always like just mates. Then I mean, every show that you see, most of them generally, they all know each other.
Yeah,
and that's how they sort of build the bill.
See, I was never in the music scene. I'm one of the only musicians I know. Like I don't hang out with any musos and my bandmates. They're like and you know now I've got a bit of a circle of people I know. But up until really recently, I didn't know any fucking musicians. I'd go to gigs and not know anyone there, and I'd play gigs, and I felt like I was like the odd one out because other people like shaking, oh man, how you going? And I'm like, I didn't know anyone, and I felt like I'd just come from another country or something.
No, I mean I was in the same boat. You know, when I first started doing all this stuff, like I used to go to gigs, and you know, it's like I didn't really know most of the people there, apart from my own personal mates. You know, but as time went on, it's like now I can't go to a show without running into like half a dozen people that I know. It just takes time and. That's not something that I've ever forced either. Like you go to enough gigs and hang out with enough people, you're going to start knowing people and making contacts.
That's right, and that's even like last night when we went to that gig. RFMD opened, and then there was Paradise and Exiled and Daybreak, then Confession, and then RFMD had like a guy helping out on clean vocals because I think their bassist must have left or something like that. I'm not sure what happened there, but. So, and their bassist would do clean vocals, but they had another guy filling in for the bass, and he obviously doesn't do vocals. So they had this other guy on stage doing cleans, and he was awesome. And then I met him after and said, man, that was awesome. And then I'm sure now when I see him out, we'll recognise each other. And it's just, going to the gigs and then I saw a few people there. And when I was walking around, I'm knowing a lot more people now than what I would have a couple of months ago.
Yeah. It just takes time and effort and just sort of, supporting the scene that you want to be a part of. Yeah. I think that's
just sucks to live so far away. It's not that far.
Oh, yeah. It's not that.
It's not even that far, but it's like an hour.
If you live in like other cities, like bigger cities, like the distance where you are from the city is pretty normal to most people. But in Perth, it's like that seems like it's the other end of the world or something.
Especially when you drive past Coburn and that fucking freeway. Yeah, that's just. Even yesterday, I was when we were driving up to the city at like around 5:30, and it was a Saturday. Usually the traffic's pretty sparse, but it was like slowed right down there at that same spot. And I said to Sam, I said, hey, today's fucking Saturday, isn't it? He's like, yeah. And I was like, seems like it's a Friday. There's the traffic.
Someone's probably had an accident or there's construction or whatever. There's always something holding
or
up.
Someone's on the side of the road on there, pulled over to talk on the phone, and everyone has to ogle because there's a car on the side of the road. So just fucking drive, mate.
Also, I just noticed, and this is a very cliched Perth thing as well, but I just noticed that clearly, and obviously I knew it for a long time, but like the whole merging thing, when you come off or when you go onto a freeway, like I was going into the Graham Farmer freeway the other day. Yeah. And there was no traffic. Like this is like 1:30 in the afternoon, not peak hour.
Yeah.
And yet somehow it was slowed right down to get into the farmer. And like as soon as we got into the farmer, like it just opened up. It's like, but what was the hold up?
Yeah.
And I realized it was just the inability to merge properly into one lane. I just couldn't figure out how to do it properly.
Well, that's like me and the missus, we went to the zoo last weekend. And then when we're coming back, we were trying to merge from Canning Highway onto the freeway south. And, you know, it's like 80 or whatever on the on-ramp, and then it goes to 100 so you can speed up for the freeway so you can get to 100. And this person's still doing 80, and I'm thinking, I said to the missus, I said, what is this dickhead doing? There's cars in the left lane doing 100, you're doing 80.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Doesn't the person in that car think, I need to kind of match their speed so I can kind of go like a zipper and fit in? And it's just, I find it infuriating. I get road rage, killer road rage, and I was just like, just fuck, man, just do the speed limit. And because then he pulls in, then they brake, and then it's everyone, and then you go back 50 cars, and they've probably stopped. And just because you are a fucking idiot,
because it holds up the entire, like it's just float. Like I have an explanation for this, and I'm adamant this is true. And for anyone out there, you know, please correct me if I'm wrong, if they have a better explanation. But my explanation is the way that Perth is set up, because it's so open and clean and kind of like quite, you know, just easy to sort of navigate because the roads are wide open. And because comparable to other cities, our traffic problem is not really a problem. We don't have much traffic. It's fairly easy to get through for the most part. Because of that, there's a complacency that people have because the roads are wide open. And so they feel like it's just, there's no real intention to really drive properly because you don't really have to. If you go and drive in places like India or in parts of Asia, where you really need to know how to drive properly. Whereas here, you don't need to. And so because of that, they just become lazy and complacent with their driving skills. And they can't do simple things like merging and stuff. You know?
It's oh, man. That's like when I went to the Philippines, because I hadn't been to a third world country that has crazy traffic like Asian
nuts,
countries do. And I remember we're just driving around and it's fucking insane, man. And there's traffic lights, but they're like a decoration.
Pretty much.
And I was, because my missus' brother was driving, and I was just like, how the fuck, we're going to crash. And I was kept thinking we're going to crash, but it just works. And no one crashes and no one gets road rage. It just works. Even though, yes, it takes ages to get from one side to the other because it's so hectic. But I'm like, man, if this was Perth drivers and it was like this,
it wouldn't last 10 seconds.
There'd be people getting their heads caved in because people would just be getting so...
I've driven in a few other... Like, I've driven in the US. Like my worst driving experience ever has been in LA. Just, if you need to drive in LA, just don't do it. It's terrible. But the thing is that the public transport system just sucks. So you kind of have to drive. But because there's so much traffic and the people there are so aggressive in their driving, like if someone didn't know about all that stuff from Perth and they went over there and just started driving, they would just not last 10 seconds. It's just a completely different sort of world, even though the road systems are similar because it's the Western world, you know, it's all pretty similar. But the environment is just completely different, you know? And it's just, I don't know, it's just here we've got it really, really easy, but so there's no excuse for the poor driving skills that we have here. I just don't understand
it. Have you driven over east?
I have, plenty of times.
Because my cousin lives in Brisbane and I've been over there a couple of times and we'd drive down to the Gold Coast and it seemed like people there know how to drive way better than Perth drivers
Brisbane and maybe Adelaide are probably the easiest places to drive around.
But the freeway there seemed like just people know what the fuck they're doing.
And it's very similar in Perth and like it's wide open. So this is where maybe my argument kind of falls apart because like they got a similar setup to Perth, and yet they actually do know how to drive. So
I think it's a Perth, it's an education thing, and it's also an attitude thing. Because you see some people, you'll put your indicator on to get in the lane, and then they'll speed up, or they just won't let you in.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
And I've said to people, I'm like, it's like that lane was their dad's lane, and before that it was their dad's lane, and they're like, this was handed down. We've had this lane for 15 generations.
They don't want to let people in.
Yeah, they're like, mate, this is my lane. Do you know how hard I work to get in this lane? I'm not letting you in.
Saying that, I have noticed, I think it does depend on the kind of vehicle you're driving as well.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that's a bit of a factor. If you're driving something that's more commercial or something, people are a little bit more open to sort of letting you in. But if you're driving like a, it's like a nice car, whatever, it's like, nah, you're not getting in.
Yeah, they're like beam on.
Yeah,
sorry, mate.
Thanks.
You're gonna have to wait.
So there's definitely an attitude aspect as well.
Yeah,
to
they
that,
see like a delivery van. Oh, he's gonna get places. We'll let him in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think there's. So I mean, there's that, but I mean, I don't know. Why can't that translate to everyone?
Yeah, there's this like arrogance about it, and just and then you'll pull in, and then they'll beat the horn, and it's like, well,
yeah,
I have to get in. I've got to turn up here, and that's like the other day. This cyclist, when we were going to the zoo. Have you been to the zoo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's on Labashare Road there, and it's dual carriageway. And I was in the right hand lane, and I hadn't been to the zoo since I was a kid, and I was like, I don't know where the fuck the parking is. And so I was in the right hand lane, and I was looking, and the zoo's on the right, and I'm driving along, I'm like, maybe it's past the zoo. And then I was like, oh, there's some here on the left. And then there was some cyclists in that lane, so I slowed down. So I get in the left lane, put my indicator on, and then they went ahead, and they were probably like 2 car lengths ahead of me. And then I pulled in that left lane, and I'm like, right, I will pull in this car park when the driveway comes up. And then one of these cyclists, he was pissed off that I got in that lane, even though he was now a car length or 2 ahead of me. Yeah. And he slowed down, and he's like, kept looking back at me, and I was like, what's the fuck this bloke going on about? And then there was the bit of a bus chicane thing where the bus pulls in, and he pulls in that and kind of slows right down and like mouth to fuck off. So I just ripped on the brakes, and I was gonna get out, and then I was just like, and then the missus was going off, going, is that? And I was like, fuck, I'd love to give this guy a piece of my mind. And I'm just like, what the fuck is his problem? I have to get in the car park, and that's a fucking car lane, by the way, buddy. And so going by his logic, I have to sit in the right lane, and then for his convenience, I have to cut across a lane of traffic when it's okay with him. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you thinking, mate? Like, I'll pay Rego. There's always that argument, but I wasn't like sitting up his ass. He had heaps of room, and that's why I was like,
and you weren't unnecessarily aggressive about it either.
Yeah, so. And that's why I was going to get out and have a go. Because I was like, what the fuck is your problem, mate? Yeah. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's just a different environment here. Like, it's just, I think there's a complacency. It's too easy to navigate around, like, as far as the size of the roads and stuff like that. Like, you go to older cities and the roads are tiny, you know, because it's been around for like hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. The road systems weren't built for like modern cars. Yeah. Perth's a modern city.
Yeah.
You know, so everything's designed for like the modern world. And so there's no reason to have all these issues. You know, it's an easy place to navigate around. There's very little traffic compared to like a lot of cities.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of it maybe just they have no experience driving anywhere else, and they just don't know and just think this is how the world operates.
Because it's so far from anywhere else. Like if you're on the East Coast, you can drive a couple of hours and you're in another city. So you got to drive the way they drive to kind of mingle in or whatever. Whereas in Perth, it's like we just drive the way we drive,
and that's it. Yeah,
and that's it. We don't have anything else to compare it to.
We're a different animal here, and this is coming from someone who's born and raised in Perth. So it's not like I'm having a go.
But you've travelled, but I've noticed that with people that are lived in Perth and don't go anywhere but Bali, and they've got that real ignorant mentality about everything in the world, whether it be cuisine or other people. Yeah. Or, you know, there's real ignorance. And
the Bali thing I don't get, because it's like you're going to another country to go hang out with a bunch of other Aussies. I just don't like, you know, like if there are parts of Indonesia that are not like sort of westernized and built around tourism. That's the part I'd be more interested in going to.
I'm going to go to Kuta and hang out with Aussies.
But go hang out in like whatever the main spot is in Bali. Like it's just, I don't, you know, if I'm going to do nightclubs and stuff, I might as well just go to places like Melbourne or whatever and do it properly. You know? So.
Yeah, but there's definitely that ignorance of Perth because it's so sheltered.
Yeah, and look, it's an easy destination to get to. It's just like a 4 or 5 hour flight or whatever it is, you know. So I get it, but like, you want to travel, go somewhere really different, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So I've always travelled my entire life, and I this last couple of years with the pandemic sort of was rough because I was not used to not going anywhere, you know. So it was tough.
Because you've been in the States a fair bit, hey?
Yeah, I've been to the US 4 times. I lived there for a period of my life as well, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, when I was running those fan sites that I was telling you about, I was running them from the US at one point.
Shit.
So, yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so and again, this gave me a different perspective. Like I graduated from college and then said I wanted to go and just do the traditional cliche backpacker kind of thing.
Spread your wings.
But I didn't want to do that because like it just became a cliche, literally. And I was like, I'm going to immerse myself in a different country. And I just had an opportunity because I knew someone in this town in the US. So I just went there.
Okay,
So,
what town was that?
This is a place in Pennsylvania. It's about 3 hours. It's like south of New York, called Williamsport.
Okay,
Which is their big claim to fame in Williamsport is they are the home of the Little League's Major World Series.
Okay,
and
is that baseball?
Yeah, baseball. Yeah, and I know it's called World Series and it's nothing to do with the world, but it's
so Japanese play baseball.
Yeah, I think baseball is massive in Japan. I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But they're not involved in the World Series though.
Okay,
so it's just the US only, and I think maybe 2 Canadian teams. I don't know, but
to the US, some of the mentalities they are the world.
Yeah, it is. It's a very this town is like not the tip. Like you can go to like LA and New York or whatever, and think that's the US, and it's like that's not the US.
Yeah,
the town that I lived in definitely represented more of the country that it actually is, and the thing is that it's quite sheltered and it's quite insular because they have everything there in that country. So there is no reason to venture out. That's why a lot of people don't really... I'd say not everyone, but like there's a lot of people that have never traveled outside the country.
Yeah.
Because apart from whatever financial situation they're in, there's no reason to, because there's so much things in that country. It's like 50 countries in one country.
Yeah, that's really diverse.
Yeah, it's like you go to like California and go to New York. They're vastly... It's almost like 2 different countries.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's the reason why they're so sheltered and insular, and because of that, they think that everything revolves around them.
Yeah.
So, but like I said before...
And it's their media and their government too,
Oh, of course, yeah. There's the way the government, runs things there, and it's a whole different conversation right there. But
is Pennsylvania a really big state?
Yeah, sort of nothing compared to like WA. You could fit probably 10 Pennsylvanias in WA, but it's big. Yes, there's a lot of towns and a lot of cities. You can't venture like 20, 30 kilometers without hitting another town, another city.
Yeah, right. Well, because I was. Yesterday, somehow stumbled on something on the internet, and I can't remember the name of the town. You would know what I'm talking about. It's where the coal's burning underground.
Oh.
And Silent Hill movie was based on.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
And it's been de-annexed, so I don't think it's on a map or anything anymore.
Well, that's actually the Silent Hill came from a video game.
Yeah, that's
initially,
right. Yeah, but the movie was based on the town that the coal's burning underground, and it's like hell or something.
Yeah. I don't know where that is in the US, but
it's
remember
in
the story.
Is it? Yeah, because when you were talking about Pennsylvania, I was like, that's where that town's from.
Right, okay.
I was just looking it up yesterday, and yeah, that's interesting. I just didn't know if you'd heard of that.
No. Every time I bring up Pennsylvania, people say Amish. They think of it's the Amish people because that's where a lot of them live.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But when I was there, I never saw one Amish person, so I don't know what they were talking about. I'm not saying they're not there. I'm just saying they live in a different sort of part of the state. So
it looks like it's like awesome scenery though.
It's all in the middle of the wild, just forest and stuff like that. It was very
like dwelling
picturesque.
up kind of thing.
Very much, but the only difference is it's not flat like it is here.
Yeah,
like I remember driving around and going through like there's a big ski resort there in the wintertime. I forget the name of it now, and like it's just mountains and huge hills, and it's like, oh my god, we just you get a little bit of that over in New South Wales and South Victoria, but nothing in what they have over there.
I can't wait to go over there.
Oh, it's interesting, and there's a lot of love-hate kind of thing going on as well. There's certain parts of it you will hate, don't understand, whatever, and then there's certain parts of it is like, wow, this is like amazing. Yeah, it's really diverse. That's the thing.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to have the time or the money to check out a lot. I'd love to go to the US for like months and just travel around and check it all out, and go to like Texas, then go to like Louisiana, and go to New Orleans, and then go up top to like the Colorado and all that, and check it all out. And one of my mates, he went to Seattle, I think, and for jiu-jitsu comp.
Oh, yeah.
And just some of the scenery, he hired a Dodge Challenger or Charger, and drove that around. And some of the scenery is awesome. And this is going to be embarrassing, but you know that Twilight movie?
Yeah.
I only know it because of my wife, but the scenery in that movie is awesome, and I think that's filmed around Seattle, maybe.
Oh,
I'm probably fucking wrong, but isn't Seattle near Washington State or something?
Yeah, it's no, it's in Washington State. It's part of Washington. It's like the very top of the US.
Yeah,
right below Vancouver and Canada.
Well, I think that's where that movie in the Forks or whatever, Forks in Washington or whatever. And I love that scenery. And he sent a few photos of that, and I was like, "Fuck, I'd love to check that out." But unfortunately, I'm only going to be going to LA and then LA, and I want to go to San Francisco.
San Francisco's in all honesty, LA is not cracked up to what it's.
I heard that. So many people said
like
that.
It's a tourist aspect. Do that, do the whole.
I'm going to go to like the Hollywood and check out fucking Sunset Strip, and then check out that wax thing museum, or is that in?
There's a wax museum in LA,
Vegas.
but it's I don't know. It's not really worth doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're better off going to like.
I want to go to Universal Studios and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do
all the tourist stuff, 100%. But that's all that LA is good for. Is just a tourist thing. Like it's a horrible place to live in. It's a horrible place to get around.
Yeah. And
it looks like shit.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard Venice Beach is a massive letdown because it's just homeless tents everywhere.
Oh yeah, there's that as well. Although when I was there last, it wasn't like that at the time. It only started happening in the last few years, where they just basically took over the. I think a lot of it was due to COVID and stuff as well. They kind of just took over the place.
And yeah, well, this is the thing. I don't want to get into politics really on this podcast at all, but it's not. I don't live in the US, but I see a lot of sentiment coming from people is that. Stop sending money to other countries. That
fix your own problems.
Fucking fix your own country.
We do the same thing in Australia as well.
Yeah, they do. And so they've sent like 38 billion or whatever to Ukraine. And so just don't worry about that. Just fix your own fucking country because you got heaps of problems.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I know a few people from the US and they say that. They wish that, they'd fix. And you can see just from looking at alternative media, because I know that the mainstream media paints a very obfuscated picture.
There's clearly a narrative that they sort of push, and a lot of it's just because there's sponsorships and paid advertising and stuff like that. Like it's just as soon as you have advertising involved in there, someone's paying you money.
Yeah, there's an incentive to. Yeah,
you can't say this, but you have to say this, and it's just,
That's why. So a lot of alternative media I watch online, and it's just like there's so. Fucking hell, man! They got some issues over there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we do here too, because Australia's like trying to be a small version of the US in a way.
Always has been. Although I think that's starting to sort of disappear when they've. I think the internet really sort of put the spotlight on a lot of the problems in the US, and because before that, I think they were looked upon as sort of like a whatever in the sky, it's sort of like something to look up to. But when everyone started to see what was really going on there, it's just like, oh, okay, maybe this is not really what we want. Yeah. But the thing is that there's no country that has it perfect either.
No,
so I don't think we should be modelling ourselves after a particular place. We should just be who we are.
Be who we are, yeah. It's just because you see over there, obviously I'm probably talking out of arse a bit here and I'm happy to be corrected, but it seems like there's a lot of, race issues over there and issues with the cops and then, African Americans and all that. Yeah. And from what I can surmise, a lot of it's media baited as well. Like because there's so many different opinions on it, but it seems like the media is just fueling that fire.
Oh, 100%.
And it's just like that country's sick. It needs help. With their shootings and people getting shot. And then when we were talking to the hanging out with the Carnifex guys, one of them. Somehow we got talking about guns or something like that, and then he goes, "Man, you know how awesome it is because we're at Little Creatures." He goes, "You know how awesome it is to sit in here and know that if a fight breaks out in here, I know I'm safe and can handle myself. Whereas in the US, I might get shot or stabbed or something like that." And he said it's just it's so different because. He said, the chance of someone in here having a gun is probably 100%. No one in here has got a gun on them.
Yeah.
Like, he goes, I can confidently believe that there's no one in here that has a gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a different mentality, different culture. The thing that I always look at it though is that there's got to be some, because I kind of feel like with any country, not just the US and whatever, but I think with any country, I think there's a lack of understanding of different cultures, and people don't, and so it's easy to criticize what you don't understand.
That's right, yeah.
And because we get the same things here, and the UK gets the same things, and a bunch of places in Europe get the same things, but like it always seems to come out of just a lack of like knowledge of really what's going on, you know.
And that's the problem. Excuse me. The problem with the media is that a lot of people just get the information from that. They don't need to understand because the media has told them all about what they need to know as far as they're concerned. And they're like, well, I know everything I need to know because I saw it on news and I'm not interested in knowing anymore, and fuck that guy or fuck them or fuck that group of people because the media said. And it's like, yeah, but if you go and meet them people or something and listen to their plight or talk to them and understand, you know, and maybe they wouldn't be the way they are because if people just understand what they're talking about and you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. I think there's just... I think there's a difference between someone going to another country and just sort of like seeing a couple of things here and there for a few weeks or whatever, and then coming back and going, well, that was, not really what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. But it's a different thing altogether to immerse yourself in another culture and then really understand. Because this is what I got from when I was living in the US, was like I was working there and living there and hanging out with all these people. And it just made me understand the place. I'm not saying that it's not without its faults. It has plenty of it. But it just made me understand that place a bit more than sort of just traveling to LA and going to Hollywood and thinking, well, this is kind of, if I just went to LA and then came back and that was my only experience of the US, I'd be like, my experience would be shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's just,
That's right, exactly right. And that's why I love when I go to certain places for work and meet people from different countries.
Oh, yeah,
I love talking to them. And sometimes people look at me like I'm a weirdo, like some workmates. They're like, "Fuck, what are you doing talking to that guy?" I'm like,
if you're gonna hang out with just the people in your like country or whatever, like just other, like it's the Bali thing. It's the exact same thing. It's like you're just going there to hang out with the same people. It's just like you're not learning anything.
That's right.
You're not understanding anyone else beyond your, and that's what the criticism of the US people are, like when they think that they're like the king shit of everything. It's because those people haven't gone and sort of done other things outside of their country. That's why they're so insular.
That's right, yeah. And that's like, I remember this, I was working on this job for that tunnel they're building for the Perth rail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had to, for a couple of days, I had to go on a job there, and I was down in the tunnel, and there was a guy that drives these little shuttle things, and you know the tunnel's made out of concrete pieces, and they've got three of them, and they lock together. And I'm not going to get into the anatomy of it all, but basically you load these pieces of the concrete tunnel pieces onto this little buggy thing, and then this guy drives it, and this guy that was driving it was this Sudanese guy. Yeah, I think he was Sudanese, and no one there would talk to him because he was a black dude, I guess, and people just ignore him, and they were just and you could tell he was just standing there by himself. So I started having a chat with him, and I think he thought that I would be probably real racist or something because the way I look, and so at first he wasn't interested in talking to me, but then because I was working with him for 12 hours for like 3 or 4 days, we had to talk, And I was just really interested, and I was asking him all about where he comes from and all that. And then after a while, me and him were having a laugh. Fuck, he was the best dude. Yeah. Awesome guy. And I kind of wish I got his details so we could keep in contact because he was just a fucking funny guy. Yeah. And he was quirky as fuck and so funny. And yeah, but no one else there was interested in talking to this guy. And he'd been working with these guys for like 2-3 years, and he was just a loner. Yeah. And I was like, man, it sucks because he's a really, really fucking funny guy.
I think that's also part of our culture in that we're a little, I don't know if distrust is the right word, but we certainly have our clickbaity moments. Do you know what I mean? Or not clickbaity, sorry, clicky moments, I should say. Yeah. Where we kind of just stay with our group. Again, that comes back to that whole thing with the Bali thing. You know what I mean?
It's just it's just comfort zone.
Yeah,
it's just comfortable to be doing the same thing you're always doing.
I understand it, I get it. People don't like being out of their comfort zone, but you learn so much more when you get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Something that
definitely.
I learned a lot during the pandemic, during lockdowns. I started investing in myself and picking up new skills and stuff like that, and things that I never would even thought about doing.
Yeah.
And now looking back on it, I was like, I'm so glad I did that. I got out, you know, of that comfort zone and sort of done things that I never would have done.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. And that's well, I went to Japan in 2014 with my cousin that lives over east, and it was just me and him went, and then so we went to Tokyo and then Hiroshima, and did a few of the touristy things. But then we also went to this place called Nikko, which is I think it was about 4 hours train ride out of Tokyo into like the middle of nowhere, and stayed at this hotel that's I think it was about 1,000 years old, and it's got them paper walls.
Wow.
Really old, amazing, and no one really spoke English out there by the time you get that far out of Tokyo, and we just wanted to stay in this traditional place and eat the traditional food, and then just do shit that most Westerners probably don't do.
Yeah,
a lot do, but but the mainstream wouldn't do.
Yeah.
And it was cool, and the food sucked because I just didn't. It was. I'm sure if you're into traditional Japanese food, it was being amazing.
Probably, yeah.
But I did not like it at all. It was all raw.
It's a big thing, fish and
raw
stuff
venison
like that,
and raw fish, and it was just like, and so I was so hungry because I didn't want to eat this shit. But yeah,
but at least you tried it though. That's the thing. At least you attempted it, because that's the thing. I think why people don't like being out of their comfort zone, apart from being obviously uncomfortable, is that they're afraid of not liking something.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's okay to not like something, or it's okay to fail at something, or you know what I mean? Like you've got to at least try it. And
that's like one of my brothers. He's like that. He's like, I've said to him, man, you should travel over east sometime or go to another country, man. So you check out Japan, because my brother makes knives, custom knives and stuff, so he's always fucking around with steel. And I'm like, man, I went to Hiroshima Castle, and they had they had like this display thing of how a samurai sword starts out. There's like bits of carbon and steel and all that. Yeah. And then you know how they fold the steel over heat over days, and they keep folding it and making it really strong. Yeah. And then it's the end product, and it's fucking awesome. And there's heaps of awesome knife shops in Japan. And they're really well made, because Japanese, they're known for making awesome chef's knives and all that stuff. Yeah. And actually, this is going off on a bit of a tangent, but in Tokyo, me and my cousin were staying at this place, and I met this guy in the lobby of the hotel, and we kind of hit it off a bit and had a good yarn. And he was from another, I think he might have been from Osaka, and I was like, why are you staying at the hotel? And then he was telling me that he travels around and sharpens people's knives for them.
Oh,
that's his job.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's really good at it, and they take, the Japanese are real prideful people, and you could have the right person to sharpen my knife. Yeah. I'm not going to sharpen it myself. We're going to get that.
Do you think there'd be a business for
that? There's a lot of honour in it.
Like,
yeah. No, people are, I'll chuck
only in Japan, wow.
But and so I was telling my brother, but he's like, no, man, why would I check out other countries when I can check out Australia? And I said, well, there's heaps of awesome, diverse countries.
Do that as well.
Yeah, but it's like, but there's other people in the world you can meet, and then he could have talked to this guy if he'd met that guy, and this guy would know so much about knives and steel because he sharpens it for a living. Yeah. And I was telling him, it was like, you could meet people like that, and you could learn so much from. I could learn heaps of shit on the internet. I was like, fucking hell, man.
It's that unwillingness to kind of just open up and try something different. That I just don't want to be that person.
Nah,
it's just,
me either.
It's just. Go out there and travel and see other things and see how other people
I'm like
live.
you. I'm curious. I've always been a curious person with things, and even some guys at work, I'll ask them how they got into, because I drive cranes, and some of the older guys, well, how did you get into driving cranes? Like, why drive cranes when you could have been doing other things? And I just am interested in hearing their story. And other people are like, who gives a fuck, man? I'm like, I give a fuck. And they're like, who cares? It's fucking lame.
I hate that mentality of, who cares? I don't care. Like, it drives me nuts. My old day job, I used to work at the airport for a reputable airline, and not so much now. But I used to have those same conversations, and it was mostly just the old school guys, guys who'd been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just like there was the same mentality, like who cares?
Who cares, man? Just get a beer and watch footy.
Yeah, it was just like, and it just drove me nuts. And I realized that I needed to get out of that environment.
Yeah.
It was very toxic, as far as that kind of thing is concerned. And when you stop learning stuff, that's the time to get out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
I hate idle chit chat or just I'm not good at small talk. I have to have like deep and meaningful conversations with people. That's why I'm super awkward sometimes when I go out in places. Some people think I'm a weirdo or I'm awkward. Or I've been told I'm really arrogant because, but it's because I'm not good at small talk, so I get awkward and then I don't talk to them or whatever. And because I'm not into talking about the footy or talking about drinking piss or snorting coke or whatever.
Yeah, I'm the same as well.
People think I'm like this boring, arrogant prick, and I'm like, nah. I just find it really hard to talk to people that aren't interested in opening up and talking about things because, I won't get into this story too much, but there's a certain group of people I've met that was like say bikies, and some of them like are really good dudes, and then others I've met they got to put on that tough facade, and then you try to talk to them, and it's like lame to talk. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then it's just fucking like, I might just go talk to that wall over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, it's just, I think their unwillingness to open up and also maybe there's lack of experience.
Yeah, it's like, and some people, Aussies, think it's like weak to talk about stuff. And it's like, I don't care. You don't have to talk about your feelings, man.
Exactly.
I'm not going, how do you feel today? I'm more just like, I'm interested. Like, what are you all about, man? Yeah. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why do you do this? And you don't have to get into details, but just fucking have a yarn, man.
Yeah.
And
I feel like, and not to sort of go back to that sort of American thing again, but when I was living there, this is what I found with the people was that they were much more open about talking about stuff than here in Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it seems like there's this sort of like cliche thing of like Americans being obnoxious and all that, and I kind of feel it's the opposite way around.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example of this. Like I remember going to see Metallica in San Francisco as part of their 30th anniversary thing. This was like 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
This is how old the band had been around. Like their 30th anniversary was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Nuts. But so a whole bunch of us, because it was invitation only essentially, like it was all club members and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And people from all around the world met up in this one place, 800 capacity venue, seeing like the biggest metal band in the world. It was just unbelievable experience. And what was really cool about it was all the different people from other countries. Like I met so many people from Japan and people from like Spain and like UK, and there was Aussies there, and like the one thing that when we were in the crowd, we were like watching the there's like a lot of like banter and stuff like that. Like people were talking and stuff like that, sharing stories about and the thing that there was a bunch of people making the most noise in the crowd. You have to think, all the amount of people that's in there, all different countries, the group of people that are making the most noise was all Australians.
Yeah, okay.
There's one group of all Australians, what we called the Yobbos or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it wasn't Americans, it wasn't like the Europeans, it wasn't the British, it was the Australians.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that attitude is the opposite way around. What we think of Americans, we are, and what they think of Australians, it's actually the other way around.
Yeah, because I've heard people say, "Oh, you go to America, man, but chicks love us because of the accent. We're super laid back."
They love Australians. They love us. Yeah, Americans love Australians because of our accent. They just love. Okay. To be fair, they love all accents. Like anyone who's got an accent, they just like to get drawn to it. But they particularly love Australia.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I'm like, really?
Yeah. But it's hard for us to imagine that because we just are used to our accents. But
I find out I hate the sound of my voice. And I'm like, so
everyone hates the sound of their voice, though, to be honest.
I'm like, it's repulsive.
I think if you love your voice, that might be a whole different sort of, thing.
Yeah. But then, you know what I love is like old school Aussies. It's different now, but when I've worked with guys that are, the real hard yakka workers that have been working in the mines for or farmers, and they're super Aussie. I love them dudes. And I used to work with this guy, and he used to play for the Eagles. And he was just, I don't know, I can't remember his story, but I can't remember the guy's name now. But this is going back a long time. But he was so Aussie, and he had all these weird sayings. I don't know what it's called. It's a certain thing it's called, but everything's got like a weird name, like a rhyming name for it. So if I want to go for a piss, he's going, I'm going for a snake's hiss. And then if I'm going for a turd, going for James Hurd.
Yeah, the English have that as well. I think we got it from the English.
Is it Cockney or something? Is that what that? No, that's
not Cockney. It's there is a term for it, and I do forget the name of it. But it's like you have to rhyme everything essentially. Yeah,
and everything he said. And it was like sometimes it's like I'm sitting there, he says something, I'm gonna like decipher it in my head what he's talking about. But it was fucking so funny.
It is like that vocabulary that we seem to have lost. I'd love to, like that whole, I mean, there's so many great sayings like fair sack of the sauce bottle is one of my favourites.
Yeah.
And no one ever says that, ever, you know.
That's what one of my mates was saying, that he was in a pizza shop a while ago in Domino's or something, and he reckons it was the most, like, it's like a dumb little story, but he said, fuck, it was funny. This guy came in, and he was a young guy, I think, but he had like a cowboy hat on, or a Cobra, and he was super Aussie, and he was like, "Uru," when he's leaving. And he was like, it's just cool seeing it from a young person.
Yeah. There's definitely, I think it's a regional thing as well. Like, it seems to be more occurring in like country areas. Yeah. And cities sort of like more sort of straight down the line kind of like thing. Yeah. If you go out like really out in the country and stuff like that, you still see bits of it here and there. Yeah. Obviously mostly with the older generation, but I think some of the young kids kind of pick up on that a little bit. And so they've got a little bit of the old school sort of Aussie slang thing.
If you go up north into some fairly rural areas, it's still really super Aussie. You know, like, you know, where them guys that drive around in them utes that have got like big aerials on them and mud flaps and all that. And but even though I went up, I had to drive from Port Hedland to Panawanica, and I had to go the long way because I think Tom Price was flooded out. But when I was driving through there, I stopped at Wim Creek, and they've got this pink pub there.
Pink pub?
Yeah, I don't know why it's pink, but it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's like you're going back 200 years. Yeah. And it's fucking all, I just loved it driving along, and I was just stopping off at these little towns that aren't probably even on a map. Well, they probably are, but it's just cool, and everyone there is so laid back. Yeah. So laid back, and they're just funny as fuck, and I just love the old dudes' attitudes, and that they're just so carefree. Yeah, man, you know, you know what I mean.
Different mentality.
Yeah. And
have you ever been to Kalgoorlie?
Nah, but these people, I could just hang around them all the time because they're just fucking, and they've lived a life, you know what I mean? You've talked to them, they're so interesting, even though they're from this little town, you think they've got nothing to talk about, but they've got awesome stories. Yeah. But no, what were you saying about Kalgoorlie?
No, I've never been to Kalgoorlie, but I hear a lot of people that have gone there and said that same kind of thing is there, but maybe a little bit more, I don't know, like it's maybe a little different to some of the smaller towns, you know? Yeah. So,
well, there's even a pub in Port Hedland, and on the toilets, it's just got shitters on a big sign.
It's the sense of humour that's really just
you would never get that down here because someone would be like,
well, certain toilets in certain clubs, I guess you might, see some of it.
But this pub's just got like shitters, and then like blokes for like the dudes, and then Sheilas for the. That's right. Yeah, the that pink pub. I'm pretty sure it had for the women's toilets was Sheilas, and then the for the men's toilets blokes. And I was like, fuck, that's cool. I love that that's still around. Yeah. But people now, they would say that's improper or something. But it's fucking, that's Aussie.
Bloke's still definitely used here and there, but the word shield has definitely disappeared, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think a lot of that has to do with the political climate that we're living in, I suppose. So.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But so I was going to ask you about your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
What's the,
I only just launched it as well, so I'm sort of on the same level as you as far as,
I saw that 10-minute episode. Is that the full thing?
That's the full thing, yeah. That was more of an introductory kind of episode, because every episode from then on is going to be like topic-wise, like it's going to be like one topic. Okay. But the idea is not to just do episodes. We're going to be doing like little clips and things like that, like just a lot of content-driven kind of stuff.
Yeah, like bite-sized stuff.
Yeah, and then like every once in a while we'll just drop a full-size episode.
That's cool, yeah, because that's originally wanted to do with what I wanted to do with this, but then it's not really going to work out. I don't have the time to edit shit down. I can't be fucked.
Well, that's the other thing that I got into video editing probably more so in the last 2 years. I've been doing it for a little while, but I kind of really invested a lot of time into doing video editing, and it's something that I want to kind of do more of. And that's where a lot of my interviews are done through like video, like Zoom calls and stuff. And I'll literally just like edit it and stuff, and I just find that stuff so much fun to do. Like you can get really creative with it. You know? But the podcast, the idea was something that me and a buddy of mine had actually come up with years ago, and we just never got around to actually doing it. We was like, we should do this, and I'm like, So
it's just going to be the same two people all the time?
Yeah, just us two. And then we'll probably end up doing some, I've already been thinking about it already, like doing interviews with like people and stuff like that.
So get a guest on?
Yeah, like not necessarily in the studio all the time, but like sometimes we'll just do like a phone call, and like the guests that I have in mind are like so outside music, but they're fascinating people that I want to talk to, and they're very reachable as well. But the idea is to do like episodes where we'll just pick a topic that's either quite popular, there's a lot of interest in, or things that we feel that people should know about. And this is not really like about politics and stuff like that. This is more just, you'll see on the second episode, if you check it out, the show's called Chimps on a Chinwag, which is a funny title.
When's the second episode out?
It'll be soon. I haven't put it together yet. We've recorded it. It's just a matter of like putting it up, and we wanted to give the first one a bit of breathing space. But the second one we're going to do, I won't give away anything, but the second one we're doing is going to be, in my opinion, the single biggest story in the entire world, and no one is talking about it. Well, when I say no one is talking about it, the mainstream is not talking about it. And this is not political. This is not COVID. This is nothing like that at all. This is just something that seems to be buried and shuffled under the rug. And me and my buddy Jared have been talking about it for years, going, what's going on here? Why isn't anyone talking about this? And every time you do bring it up, it's like they just don't want to know about it.
Yeah, right.
So I'll tell you more about it off the air when we finish this.
Don't spoil it.
But... And it's a big topic, depending on where on the internet and stuff that you follow this topic. It's massive, and it's all official as well. This is not like some conspiracy or theory or opinion or whatever. This is 100% true and verified, and yet people still won't listen to it. Like it reminds me, and I talked about this on the first episode, there's this movie called Don't Look Up, which I don't know if you've ever seen.
Is that in Africa and they... Is that the one?
No. This is with like a Hollywood film. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh,
that's right. Yeah, it's about where the media a lot lying about everything, and there's an asteroid coming or something like that.
And no one listens to the scientists going, this thing's coming. We've got like X amount of days before we get to sort our shit out. I've
seen a bit of it. I think I was watching it, but I fell asleep on the couch or something. But
it's a frustrating movie, but there's a correlation between that and what we're going to be talking about in this second episode. Yeah, okay. And it's like, why isn't anyone listening to like the people that are saying this is legitimate, And it's just...
Well, that's one thing I was talking to... Me and Sam always talk about... Sam's my bandmate for anyone listening, but me and him always talk about lightly touch on politics stuff, and because he's a lot more level-headed than me, and I'm one of them people that I kind of like get too into the... politics or conspiracy stuff, and then whereas he's a bit more level-headed, and then but I talk to him because then because he will like calm me down, not calm me down, I don't get stupid about it, but he'll like rationalise things for me. And then I was saying with politicians and all that, these people at the top, again, I don't really want to get too into politics on this, but I was saying to him, do you reckon they're incompetent and like bankers and that, because you know how we get into these recessions and that, or do you think it's there's a hidden hand at the back that's driving it all? And I said, is there an agenda, or do you think that they're just incompetent, and because they're that high up, there's no one to question them or correct them, and so they just do what the fuck they want and they're making mistakes, or do you think it's all by design? And and then he said he thinks there's a lot of it's, I think it was him that was saying it's a lot of it's probably incompetence. And another mate was saying that as well. He was listening to a podcast about Bitcoin. He's gotten right into it. One of my mates has dived headfirst into it and put a lot of money into it. And he was saying that they were talking about the banking system with fiat currency and all that. And he was saying that they've dug themselves this hole. The financial system has a lot of bankers and that, and it's just a lot of it's incompetence. And you would think these people wouldn't make stupid decisions because they could have so many advisors and all that around them, so many decision makers and people to correct their course along the way. But it's like they've gotten too big for their own boots kind of thing, and too powerful, and there's no one reining that power in. It's unchecked, and they're unelected people as well. No one elected, no one's checked them out, and a lot of it's like what's it called when you get like a friend a job or a family member? What's that called again?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it's like people not necessarily, they're not putting an ad out for the best person to be controlling the finances. It's more like it's who you know.
Yeah,
and it's someone that's like from an investing firm is now controlling that bank or whatever. And
they'll all hire like sort of in-house kind of thing, which is a lot of businesses and corporations. It's like quite common.
Yeah, and so if that guy's incompetent but good at bullshitting his way through, or they're all, smoking cigars, hanging out, he's just going to keep grifting through, and that incompetence is going to be then in the next thing. And
I think, like you were saying with the government's incompetence, 100% the government is incompetent. They can't hide anything. And this is exactly what I'll be mentioning in the second episode, and this is why this thing has come out and been verified, because they couldn't hide it anymore. But they're terrible at hiding secrets. They're just terrible at it because there's so much leaky things going on in the government. But they're not really, they're merely a lot of the politic figures and elected politicians and stuff. They're just pawns in the whole game. I do feel like there's obviously a lot of incompetence going on, but there's also definitely some controlling going on. But it's not the government that does that. It's a lot of the corporations that kind of invest in stuff, and then they're the ones.
It's all like corporatocracy kind of.
Yeah. And that's where, like we mentioned before about advertising and stuff that controls the media and stuff like that. As soon as you have money involved in it, all of a sudden you're handing over power, essentially, So
that's funny because, sorry to get you off there, but it just reminded me of this thing. I saw an interview with something Vladimir Putin said years ago, and he was saying something about when a president in the US gets elected, they have all these ideas and these campaign promises, and he goes, and then these people with black suits and ties visit them, and then everything changes. And so I wonder who these people are that visit them, but definitely that would happen. Because you see they've got all these promises, and then things change dramatically. And I'm sure when you become president, you get briefed, and there's people that come see you and say, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to say, and you're going to tell a fucking line.
Well, the president, contrary to popular belief, and this goes with any sort of official leader of any country, they're not really the guys that are in charge.
That's funny, because I think the same thing. People are like, it's the most powerful man in the world, Biden. It's not. He's not. Look at him. He can't even fucking put a sentence together. There's no way his, like, how they say, with the Ukraine war, like Putin's ordered missile strikes. Like, he wouldn't be personally going, I want you to send a missile to Kiev right now, and send 100 missiles and blow up that stuff and some of the civilian infrastructure and all that. It's like there's no way he would never personally make them decisions. I think that it would be military advisors, because why would they let someone like a president that doesn't really know any military tactics and that be making military decisions? And it's so dumb to see that. And
the idea behind the president is the US president in particular. I don't know what it is for the Australian Prime Minister and so on and so forth, but I know for the US president, their official title is Commander-in-Chief. It's a military role. They don't actually have any real power in like Congress and sort of like other sort of everyday political stuff. Their main role, and it was designed this way initially when the country was founded, is they're the guys who are running the military side of things, because that's what there was, because they were fighting the British. So they had someone. So that's what they designed that role for. Now you're right, 100% that these guys usually don't have any military experience. Some people do. Like I know there's been a few that have had some experience, but
I think it's gone far away from that now. And you know how they say, his fingers on the nuclear button. It's like, I highly doubt, but I don't know, but I would highly doubt that Putin is going to be able to go, nuke New York now, and they're going to go, okay, no worries, yes sir. There'd be people that go, no fucking way.
I think people. I think there is pushback against Putin by his own people as well.
Well, there would be. I'm sure. Like, not everyone is just. I'm sure they're not all sycophants that just. And I'm sure what we see is wildly different to what's behind the scenes. Because it's probably going to be unpopular to say this, but I've seen heaps of things of him over the years, and he's an awesome public speaker, and he's definitely a super intellectual dude.
Oh, usually the most successful dictators are good at their job.
Yeah.
That's why they're there.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying that's the defense of what they do, but they have to be good at what they do. That's why they wouldn't be in that position.
Because you look at the way when he has a speech and say Biden, it's like polar opposites.
yeah.
It's like Biden's not really like a statesman-like, or he's...
No.
He just doesn't look like a president. Like, it doesn't come across. But when you hear, say Obama when he would speak versus George Bush, Obama's really statesman-like and really...
He was very charismatic. He knew how to talk.
Whereas you hear Bush, he was more like,
bumbling idiot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just like Biden and it's like when people go, oh, he's the most powerful man in the world, or this or that. It's like, no, but then they can't really do anything if Congress doesn't approve it.
Exactly.
And so it's like, really, they're not really...
It's the idea of the position, but it's not really the person themselves.
Yeah.
And as like I said, that role that they have is a military position. You look into the history of the country and see how it formed and stuff. That's why the president is there. He's a commander-in-chief. But there are other people that control other things that really have more power than he has.
Yeah, and especially now, everything's become so compartmentalised, and then there's so many roles being created, and there's advisors of advisors of advisors.
But as I said, like, what's really changed the most is the corporation side of things and the lobbyists and all that stuff.
Yeah,
those are the ones that really control everything that goes on.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
The elected leaders are just pawns in the whole thing.
Yeah,
and it sounds like a conspiracy, but if you look hard enough, you can see that's clearly the case.
Yeah, that's right, and that's like I was talking to someone at work yesterday, and there was a video I saw on YouTube a while ago, and I think it's called "Monopoly: The Way the World Works" or something like that. And this guy goes on to Yahoo Finance, and then shows you, if you look up like PepsiCo and couple other companies.
Yeah.
Well, basically everything in your house that's is made by whatever companies, like all your food and all your furniture and all that. Well, then their shareholders of them are then it's all these three main companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and then something else. And it's like people think that Pepsi versus Coke. Not talking about the flavour, but they think they're like rival companies. It's if you look at the top, it's like owned by three people, three investment firms, and everything. Even I looked at the company that I work for, because they're on the stock exchange, and their biggest shareholders. I can't remember the name of the bank, but then the biggest shareholder of that bank is BlackRock or something like that. So it's like, so by extension,
they're owned by the same.
Yeah, and it's like everything you buy. So people go, I'm not going to Coles. I'm going to go to Woolies now because fuck Coles. It's the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah.
It's like I remember the first time I noticed this was Chicken Treat and Red Rooster when I found out they were actually owned by the same company.
Really?
Yep.
Oh wow!
I don't know if it still is. This is years ago when I discovered that.
Chicken Treat's chips, though, man.
I know.
And that kamikaze sauce. I just ordered some online.
Like they clearly did that because they were there was like a sort of manufactured competition.
Yeah, and there's two sides of the market, and then you can have both sides.
You got both sides. You win no matter what.
Yeah, that's right.
The other thing that I did notice years ago was Starbucks, the way that they would put their and McDonald's probably does the same thing as well, but Starbucks in particular, they would literally put a store in places where they knew they would lose money in competition, but they had to put it there to show their face, to show that everyone that they were there, you know.
Yeah, okay.
And they would lose money intentionally to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it, obviously behind the scenes, that we're not privy to, as far as like decisions for a while. Would they would put certain things certain ways? Because some people look at things and go, "Why would you do that?" And so I'm sure there's a reason. People
don't some business reason that we don't understand.
Yeah, and that's even like guitar strings. I don't know this. I'm sure there's people out there that will correct me on this, but I'm sure a lot of them that are different brands just made in the same factory. So essentially, made out of there's the same material. So if you buy, say, Diodario and then buy Dunlop, you're buying the same strings essentially. Maybe, maybe not them big brands. Maybe they got their own dedicated ones. But that's like I got my gun license years ago, and then I bought a gun and all that. And then when I bought some ammo, I was looking at different brands online, and I went on some forum, and someone said that CCI is one of the companies. They're like, CCI makes like whatever percentage of bullets for other manufacturers. So if you buy CCI, you really, but they're different prices, all the ones, but it's really the same manufacturer.
Yeah, it's
so
funny
people will be like, oh, buy a Winchester or buy a Hornady or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, it's made by CCI anyway, or whatever. You know.
It's just a lot of it is just run by the same people, the same companies. Like it's just so narrowed down. Like we seem to have got all these options, but our choices aren't really that big.
No.
Like it's pretty limited because it all kind of just goes down to the same people.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have the illusion of choice. George Carlin, who I'm a big fan of and sort of influenced me in a lot of my sort of thinking and stuff. And he's a comedian as well, which is so funny. But he also was a bit of a philosopher in the way he would sort of do his comedy. But he said, like, we have nothing but the illusion of choice. We don't really have a choice. Like, we're just being pushed to sort of like, you know, they could just take out something. And it's like, what can we do? Now we have to go and do this, you know?
That's
it's
right,
just,
exactly. He had some really eye-opening stuff that he said.
Oh, and that sort of goes before any of the stuff that's happening now. Like, I can only imagine what he'd be thinking now, but like he was saying this stuff in the 80s and 90s, you know, and it's just like way ahead of his time.
He was, but he was 100% correct.
He was,
Even this is going off on another tangent, but there's a guy I watch on YouTube. His name's Brian Forrester or something. His last name is, and he does these things called Hidden Inca Tours. That's the name of his company, and you basically pay. I don't know what the amount of money is, but you go on like tours to Egypt and stuff like that, and seeing like old monolithic stuff.
Yeah.
And you go to places where tourists can't go because he must use the money. Because I think it's probably a fair few $1,000s to go on these tours, and he gets heaps of people that go on them, and then they must pay people, you know, like the tourist industry to take them behind the scenes, and he puts up videos on YouTube of heaps of stuff in Egypt that you can't get to if you were to go visit there yourself. You would never get to see it, and I didn't know that there's a second Sphinx, but it's not fully built. So they started building it and stuff like that, and heaps of interesting stuff. Then he takes you down this thing called the Osiris Shaft, which is on that Giza plateau, and down there there's these massive granite boxes. They say they're sarcophaguses. That's what like the archaeological industry calls it, but he's not part of that. And he says, you know, we don't really know. They haven't found any bodies in any of them before. They just think that that's what it is. Yeah. And these things weigh like 80 tons. Wow. And then the lids on them are 20 tons, so they're like 100 tons all up, and they're down like 200 or 300 feet down this shaft that they can't fit in. They're too big anyway to go in there. Yeah. And they're in all these rooms, and they've got stairs going into them, but the openings aren't big enough to get the boxes in. But the boxes are solid, and they're perfectly formed. And you can look it up on YouTube if you look up his channel, and it's amazing. And one of them looks like it's been carried down a hallway and then dropped because it's broken. And it's like he said, it's almost like something happened and they left this place in a rush. Yeah, and then he shows you heaps of places in Egypt where there's heaps of scorch marks on stuff. Yeah. And there's like pyramids that have, like small ones they're building that have been blown over, and they're all damaged and broken. But it's like, how would that have been knocked over when it's a pyramid and they're quite stable, the design, but it's all like smashed to pieces and there's all scorch marks. He's like, it's almost like maybe like an asteroid or something hit, or a comet or whatever.
Possibly, yeah.
And you just see so much interesting stuff in his videos, and he takes like geologists with him and other people that are experts, and there they just show you like machine tool marks on things, and he's like, they definitely had some stuff that we don't know about, or maybe we do know about this in the Vatican archives or something. Yeah. You know, but
I've there's a theory going, and it's still obviously theoretical, but there's evidence to show that the theory has some substance to it, and that it feels like, and it may have happened a couple of times where civilization has actually had a reset a few times, and so we've sort of reached a certain point, something catastrophic happened,
like a cataclysm thing,
and then kind of like civilization had to sort of restart again, and
then it's gone off branch a different way.
Yeah, they reckon there's evidence to show this, that it's happened a couple of times before, and it would explain some of the anomalies that they've found in some of these archaeological digs
like technology.
as well.
They go, well, they can't have that technology because at that time they were just farmers. It's like, but maybe we branched off and made technology, like we've got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all that stuff. maybe we have technology in that way, and like plastics and all sorts of things we own now. Maybe they never discovered plastic, but they discovered magnetism. They could like levitate things or something with a certain frequency of whatever, because they've found ancient batteries and stuff in Iraq or Samaria or whatever the fuck it was called back then. Oh, I'm probably getting that wrong. I'm shit at geography. But yeah, it's like maybe their technology was super advanced, but in a different way.
Yeah.
We think of advanced technology as
computers,
and that, because that's what our advanced technology is. But if you go on a different path and discovered things a different way to us, then maybe they didn't discover the wheel. Maybe they didn't create the wheel. Maybe they created something else that was just crazy but completely different. And if you just see it now, you wouldn't really understand it.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I've seen a bunch of like legitimate like geologists and sort of historians and stuff like that have talked about this stuff, and they present all these evidence that they've found, and none of it's really truly concrete, because it's very hard to find this kind of stuff because it's been so much time that's gone past. Yeah, like it's so quick that like how if you leave something for like even 100 years, how nature will just overtake it so quickly. Right, yeah. And you have to think over a couple of thousand years, like things are just buried under rubble, under sand and stuff like that, and it's just.
And not only that, when people come through and conquer an area, a lot of the times they will destroy things.
Yeah, exactly.
When in Egypt, I think was it the Romans or whatever, I think they destroyed some stuff, or maybe the Persians destroyed stuff, and it's like maybe they had some really cool technology, and then when the armies came, maybe the general of that army was ruthless and said, "I want you to fucking burn everything here, destroy everything. I don't want to trace this civilization to ever be found."
And it's not that difficult to do, to give some time where they will just be hidden. Yeah. But we discover things all the time, like these cities and stuff, like especially in the I think it might have been in the Amazon or something, where they literally found all these like cities and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they use that ground penetrating radar to find it. There was that guy I was on Joe Rogan was talking about it.
It's probably, I know there's a guy named Graham Hancock that's written a few books on this subject, and I
think I've got one of his books somewhere behind me somewhere.
Well, he initially was labelled as a bit of a crackpot by his own scientific colleagues as well, because his theories were so outlandish. And at the time when he first proposed them, he didn't really have enough evidence. But now, over time, he's discovered all these things. It's like something is definitely here, Like
that's right.
There's clearly something going on that we just don't understand that's happened in the past.
Well, that's like because people become like real dogmatic about this stuff, and then say the archaeological field. All them people that are archaeologists, they might be set in their ways, and it's when you're in academic institutions, you can't speak up because you might get your funding pulled or this or that, and that's your only way of making a living or feeding yourself is by getting grants and funding for doing research. So you got to toe a line. So if you ever want to speak out or you find something and they go, look, we're not going down that way, we're gonna get, you can't really. You got to toe the line, and then I've seen some of them guys that get ridiculed by that community. Yep. And these guys have really compelling ideas, but the community won't accept it, and then will never like authenticate their papers they write about it. So it's never becomes like an authentic, theory. So these people, every time they talk about it, they're like, "Oh, that guy's a crackpot conspiracy theorist." It's like, no, well, maybe he had a really compelling argument for something, but they refuse to accept it because it goes against everything they've known. Yeah. And you think about a lot of people, there's a lot of people that won't listen to stuff you say, that we're not interested. We'll amplify that to these people that have degrees and think they're really clever and are really clever, but you try to show them something that's maybe outside of the box, and they're like, no, they're not interested, and then, so you hit a dead end, and that's like going back to that Brian Forrester guy. His all the stuff in Egypt. There was a guy that was looking after the antiquities thing for Egypt over there called like Zahi Hawass, and he was. I don't think he's really popular now, and he was controlling the Egyptian tourist industry and all that for fucking years, for decades, and he's not anymore. But there's a lot of stuff he just wouldn't let people explore or see because he's like, no, we've checked it out. There's nothing to see and stuff like that. And
make you wonder, like, what if he's hiding something or
Yeah, that's right. It's like, because there's they found them hidden chambers in the pyramids.
Yeah.
With that radar thing.
Yeah.
It's like, why haven't they checked that out yet? But it's like people have stopped it in its tracks.
Yeah.
But why?
And so why? Was that because they discovered something that they couldn't really reveal, or because they didn't think it was worth investigating? I mean, who knows, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, but I mean, the scientific thing should be exploring and being open about new ideas. That's what the whole scientific thing is about, you know?
Yeah. Well, science has changed a lot over the past few years.
Yeah,
it's become like religion.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's become like you can have an opinion on certain things, even though it's fact. You know, it's like, well, you can't have an opinion on fact. A fact is a fact.
Yeah,
you know?
that's right.
That's where the whole flat Earth thing came from. I think a lot of it was just they didn't buy into it for whatever reason, and they've just completely dismissed all the evidence. It's like, I don't know, there's photos of the planet. I don't know, that should be evidence enough. But then they go, well, the photos are fake, and it's like, oh well, it's a rabbit hole that you know.
And the thing is, we only know what we are presented with because you don't have a way of going out into space and seeing for yourself.
Yeah, but there's certain things you can do to kind of to verify
experiments
that stuff,
like with light and all that and shadows.
And also just go up, you know, in like a parachute or whatever, and to see the curvature of the Earth.
That's right,
like,
yeah.
You know.
Oh no, but isn't that light refracting off the atmosphere?
There can be an argument for everything, but it's like you've got to draw the line somewhere.
That's
you know?
right, yeah. But that's the thing. We only know what we're taught, and we don't have any way of verifying anything we know really, that unless there's a way for us to see it with our own eyes and prove it to ourselves.
That's
like anything you learn, like be it from like the moon landings to whatever, you know, there's heaps of evidence or like arguments that maybe that didn't happen and that was filmed in a studio or in the desert. Then, you know, because there was heaps of weird shit around that. I don't know. You know, I'm always pretty open minded about stuff, but it's like we only have the evidence we were shown. You know what I mean? There's no
exactly. Yeah. And there's all different things coming out from that kind of thing as well, which again, I'll probably mention in that episode of my podcast as well. So, but I'll tell you more about this off air because it's an interesting thing, and I'm sure you might be already aware of it. It kind of sounds like you might be, but it's kind of it's interesting to kind of discuss things like what we were just talking about now that not everyone seems to really want to talk about. You know? No,
for sure, definitely, it's good. But that's the thing is when you're hosting it on platforms like YouTube, it's like you can only go so far talking about something before they go.
You're open to censorship and ridicule, and I said this in the first.
I saw that on your thing.
I said, who's fact checking the fact checkers?
Yeah, and sometimes I've looked them up because some people have it in their profile as a fact checker. And
really?
You look them up, and some of these like fucking fat slobs that are just living, you know. Yeah. And it's like
basement dwellers.
It's like, do you have any credentials?
Probably not.
And it's not regulated, you know. Like who's regulating that?
I mean, the internet's just one of those open-ended things. It's just a free-for-all kind of thing, you know. It's just you know.
And these fact checkers, who like elected them fact checkers?
Yeah.
What's
the criteria to get that position?
That? And if it's the company that's doing the fact checking is overseeing it, it's like that's like the government and how they go, we're going to investigate ourselves.
Yeah, that's a bit of a.
You know, when the government goes, we're doing a commission into, it's like, so you're going to investigate yourself on corruption and go.
No, nothing's wrong here. We're all good.
Exactly. You're not going to go, oh, fuck, we're corrupt, arrest us.
No one's going to, you know, sort of get stuff on them, you know, like dirt or whatever, on themselves. Like, who wants to do that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like with these fact checkers, they're letting external parties in to verify these fact checkers. Facts are facts.
Yeah. I think what it is that people just need to learn how to utilize critical thinking for themselves.
That's right. Yeah, that's where these fact checkers have found their usefulness, is because people don't think critically much anymore. They rely on being told what's right by the TV or the internet.
Neil deGrasse Tyson said this here in an interview once where he said people need, and a few other sort of scientists have said the same thing, like it's one thing to go to school and be educated and to learn stuff, but all they're really doing is just relaying information to you and then you're just remembering it, memorizing. Right. But what about the actual learning part of it? Where does the learning come into that, you know?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it's exactly right. And you think a lot of the most remarkable people in history, a lot of them weren't educated well and thought out, because when you go to school and you're taught to learn a certain way, and so you might not think out of the box because you're taught to learn this way.
Yeah.
Fuck, sorry, I'm losing myself here. so you know, but people that haven't done years and years of study on something or whatever, they might be more inclined to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
Because they're not thinking with them down that, you know, down that certain narrow pathway that you've studied. If you've studied something and you've learnt to study it that way, and that's the way you study it, and you know what I mean? So you might not really ever think out of the box, you know, because that's the way it is.
A lot of times it's just like it's a memory thing. Like you're just remembering stuff. You know, like I saw this quite early on, like with my son when he was about probably 1.5, 2 years old, whatever, and we found that he was quite good with numbers. And we thought, oh, you know, he's quite smart, you know, he knows how to do this. But we realised what he was actually doing was he was just remembering stuff, and he knew how to remember it and kind of just put it out there.
Yeah.
Like he knew the numbers. So that's different. That's different than actually, because he would say, oh, I'm smart, you know. It's like, no, you're just remembering. I'm not saying he's not smart, but I'm just saying like he's remembering stuff. So he has a really good memory, which is good, but that's not the same as learning. Like, why is it doing that? You know, why is 2 + 2? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he would remember the word, he would remember the equation 2 + 2 and go, oh, that's 4.
Yeah.
But like the difference is, why is it 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is 2 + 2? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was
yeah.
it. And if you can kind of put that into a lot of the other things that we learn, and you realize that a lot of it, especially in your university and just in basic school and stuff, a lot of them, they're not really teaching you how to learn stuff. It's like the ones that tell you like show your work is, I think that's kind of the right approach, because you need to figure out why this and this works, you know, rather than going, well, I just know this because I remember reading it and I just remember it.
Yeah.
It's just a different thing.
That's right.
It doesn't make you smart, you know.
That's right, and that's like people nowadays, because you can access so much information online, but it's a lot of the information is carefully curated.
Exactly.
And like you see with the you know, the climate change stuff, everyone, that's like the flavour of the month at the moment. And people saying, oh, we need to go EV with everything, and it's like, and we need to completely get off hydrocarbons like oil and that. And it's like, but
it brings up other problems that they don't see.
It's like I was talking to someone on Facebook about it a while ago, and I said, I don't think you really can fathom how much we rely on oil. He's like, it was pretty easy. We can just replace it with something else. I'm like, literally everything is derived from oil now, like polyester, or polyethylene, like, you know, that's all crude oil derived. Bitumen on the road, tires on your car, rubber, and that's oil. That's made from crude oil. Paint on your car, the bumper, the plastic bumper on your car, the rubber on your steering wheel. And people don't realise when you look into it, and it's like, you know, your Tesla, like a lot of that is hydrocarbons that's made out of all the plastics, and then the steel. To make that steel, you got to heat the steel up, and you got to smelt it to make panels for cars, and then people don't realise. And it's like, then, you know, then the bitumen, and then that the roads are made from, and it's just like everything. If you look in your house, everything is derived from petroleum based stuff. Everything. Just about. That's not a plant.
It's everywhere.
The lino, the fucking fake floorboards right there on the floor, that's made out of hydrocarbons.
It's just,
the carpet.
It's just, it's amazing how, you know, it's infiltrated sort of everything. We just don't realise it because we just don't know the process behind, you know, how it, you know, again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier in the show about, like, you know, the end product, you know, and we're only seeing the end product. It's like, oh, it's nice and shiny and it's cool. And but we're not seeing the journey to get there. And
that's
it's like,
right.
you know, once you start looking at that, you go, oh, that's interesting, and you start learning more about it.
Because you just see all these people that just, not that it really bothers me or anything, but, you know, you just see people online and that, and they're just going, oh, we're going to have to go 100% renewables. And it's like, well, renewables aren't renewable because solar panels are really, really troublesome to, you can't recycle them. And they're troublesome for the environment, and they're not renewable. Wind turbines aren't renewable because I've worked on wind farms before, and I know how much goes into them, and the trucks that transport them there, and all the, you know, the diesel, and then the oil. That people don't realise that the gearboxes in them are full of oil, as a lubricant, and you know, they got thousands of litres of oil in them, or hundreds of litres or whatever, and they weigh 20 tonnes, them gearboxes, and they're steel, made out of, you know, that's all stuff coming from hydrocarbons and oils, and even the blades, the fiberglass, they can't recycle that, so they have to be, they've got a lifespan, and then if birds hit them, they break, or, you know, and they really fuck up migratory routes for birds and that, and so you see this whole renewables thing getting thrown around. And it's not renewable, though. It's not.
It's just more complicated than I think people kind of realise, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, it's all cool. Like, I 100% think that, yes, we should definitely not pollute as much as we should, and definitely, but let's be smart about it, not stupid.
And practical. Like, you got to be...
Practical, yeah.
You got to try to figure out something different than the way that you think might work.
That's right, yeah.
But, yeah, sort of coming back again to my next episode... it'll touch on a little bit of that, because this thing that's happening, if it became mainstream and it was accepted and then became more open and stuff, it would actually change everything, and it includes energy sources as well. Right. So it's just an interesting subject because we do need to figure out how to make ourselves sustainable. Because we're not going in the right direction, I don't think. You know. So,
no, that's right.
But trying to find the answer, I don't know. No, I don't think anyone really has the answer.
Yeah, so maybe they do, but maybe it's not profitable.
Yeah, usually the best ideas are not profitable.
That's right. I think it all boils down to that. Is money, because this is so going off on a tangent, but and I hope people don't tune out, but it's, you know, like nuclear energy. I was looking up that a while ago, just watching heaps of stuff on YouTube and all that, and that makes so much sense to go nuclear. It does. It's so taboo because of the Chernobyl thing,
and they're looking at it as the risk, but the risk is so. The trouble is that we're looking at it from like what nuclear power plants used to be back in like the 60s and 70s, where the technology just wasn't there, like in a safety sort of point of view.
And it was in the USSR, which was you know, not the pinnacle of
exactly. But now they can build things that are like nothing's ever completely safe, but it's got to be as safe as it ever can be. You know. Well,
then I was looking up that why don't they build more power plants, and they say one of the reasons, besides it being a taboo thing, the other biggest reason is the cost of building them. It can take up to like 7, 8, 9 years. And it's like, but then they can run for so long, and all the nuclear fuel that's been spent so far can fit in like the area of a baseball stadium or some shit like that. Something like that. I'm probably misquoting that, but so it's really, really efficient, and now they're finding ways of being able to recycle the spent fuel and use it another way, and certain things like that, and it's and there's zero emissions, no emissions at all. So they keep going on about carbon footprint. So there's no emissions if you build.
I mean, there is the waste side of things, I guess.
But they've found ways of mitigating that a lot and storing it really safely, and but it's people just. Yeah, it's so taboo. And
it's because of the risk factor, but then they don't look at the data behind the current way of working. And like so many people, there's risks all the time, and people are getting sick and die from it constantly, way more than one reaction that might go off. You know?
But now that's, and I was because I was watching some stuff, some documentaries and that, and now they've got so many fail safes that they reckon it's like a meltdown's probably impossible to happen, because
again they're looking at it from the perspective of like what it was like in the 60s and 70s. It's like, no, the technologies were far better than that now. And
not long before that they only started discovering nuclear energy, you know, when they dropped the bomb. And then so it was only a couple of decades later that they were making nuclear power plants from that similar technology, and so it was pretty in its infancy, really.
It's just that risk factor that people are afraid of, but it's just, I don't know. It just seems like the current way that is happening, they're not seeing all the risks that come with that. They just think it's risk-free.
That's right.
But it's like, it's not. It's clearly not risk-free. It's like it's way more risky doing the way that we're doing it now than this other option. That's right. You know.
But it's, and like I was saying, like they say, because it's not cost-effective to build it because it can take up to 9 years or something. It's like, who gives a fuck? Just put the money up for it and just do it.
It'll pay itself off.
And it's like, but it's money. Like it just goes back to money. And yeah,
if money's the only reason to not do something, then I don't know. It's a pretty weak argument, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right.
You can get past the money because money is it's a man-made thing.
Exactly, that's right.
You can get past that. Just like don't have any money involved.
Well, it's funny the amount of money they'll throw at building, weapons and stuff, and
military stuff.
The military budget. It's like how many power plants could you build with that?
Oh god,
or something. You know what I mean?
We waste so much money in just defense alone.
Yeah.
Obviously, the US has one of the biggest in the world, but Australia's no slouch in the defense department either.
Yeah.
But for what reason?
Yeah. So when were we last under attack, or who's trying to attack us?
I mean, I guess the Putin thing now comes into play, but I don't know.
I don't want to get into that. But there's antagonising people, and the US has had their fingers in Ukraine for years, and
of course, yeah.
And the Bidens were
but the money thing,
there.
like the military spending on that, it's just insane amounts of money that could be even like a 5% of that could be utilised in such a better way.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. But I guess we should probably wrap it up.
I think it was a long conversation.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's good.
That was good. No, we went into a lot of different topics, which I love. Rather than just sort of talking about music, which is great.
Yeah,
but it's like who are we as people? What our opinions are and stuff.
So now probably got a few people think I'm kooky.
Who cares? When my second episode drops, people are going to be thinking I'm nuts as well. Because I haven't really talked...
When is it coming out again?
I don't know yet. I'll probably look at maybe either this week or next week. Probably next week, I'd say.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to drop a few teasers first before we put it out there. And then I'd be interested to see how many people are on the same page with that, if they even know about it. So,
I'm interested to hear about it. So
we'll talk about it off air, not for you guys listening or watching. So
yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, Andrew.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.